Hello, everyone, and welcome to SBA's final and second week of the SBA Cyber Summit. We are thrilled to have you join us virtually as we dive into the most important information and topics that small business owners need to know about how to not only strengthen your cybersecurity infrastructure, but really mitigate those threats that can impact your business operations. In an increasingly digital world, protecting your businesses from cyber threats is essential for safeguarding your assets and maintaining your customers' trust. And we've designed this particular summit to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and turnkey solutions to enhance your cybersecurity measures. So throughout the day, we'll be providing rolling updates on the agenda in the chat so you'll know what to expect. So please stay active in the chat. Not only that, please share your thoughts, ask questions, and also connect with your fellow participants. Now, it is my complete honor to introduce the next speaker, Aditi Dassault. Aditi Dassault heads up our SBA Office of Entrepreneurial Development, which is the primary technical and education arm of the agency. Aditi brings a wealth of experience and insight, and we're so excited that she's here to join us to share her thoughts on how she's empowering small businesses in today's digital landscape. So thank you all for being here, and we'll get started shortly. I'll see you all in the chat.
Hello and welcome. This is Aditi Dassault, and I am the Associate Administrator of SBA's Office of Entrepreneurial Development. I'm so glad that you're back today for our second day of activities around our Cybersecurity Summit. And I hope you were able to join us last week for a bunch of great sessions where we featured experts from the private sector, our small business development centers, and other resource partners, as well as our federal agency partners like CISA, and of course, great people from SBA. We hope that you got a lot out of those sessions. And if you were able or were not able to join us, don't worry, we've got plenty more today. And of course, all of these sessions will be available on SBA.gov's YouTube channel once we do a little bit of post-production. So we're thrilled to have you back for day two. We will have a lot more actionable steps, good tips for you to break home and make sure you're implementing in your business to make sure you're at the very best position to handle these cybersecurity threats. So we have a great agenda to look forward to, which we'll cover in a few moments. And I hope that you are able to avail yourself of these additional resources that we're going to be presenting to you today. And don't forget all of the great resources that are available on SBA.gov. We've got our local assistance tab for you to find our local district offices, as well as our small business development centers, women's business centers, veterans business opportunity centers, SCORE chapters. Everything that you need locally is in our local assistance tab at SBA.gov. So we hope you go there, as well as to our great SBA Learning Center, where we have a lot of additional self-paced guided courses through different topics, including cybersecurity, but many, many others. So please avail yourself of all these resources, and of course, stay tuned for today. But we're going to kick today off right using this great opportunity to welcome our Deputy Administrator, Delaur Syed. He's been with the agency for a little bit now, and we are so excited to have his commitment to entrepreneurship and his expertise in both entrepreneurship and technology as on our leadership team. So he's got some remarks for you coming up right now, and I'm so excited to have him here. So Deputy Syed, welcome, and thank you for being here.
I'm Delaur Syed, SBA's Deputy Administrator and host of today's Cyber Summit. Welcome to the second session of our 2024 virtual summit addressing the critical cybersecurity concerns faced by small business owners across our nation. Our first session was a huge success as we kicked off our education initiative that supports the President's Declaration of National Cyber Awareness Month. First, I want to take a moment to recognize that some of you may be joining from communities recently impacted by Hurricane Helene and Milton. At the addition of the President and the Vice President, I recently traveled to Asheville, North Carolina, and then actually drove from Tallahassee, Florida to Valdosta, Georgia, and Savannah, Georgia, to see firsthand the needs of homeowners and small businesses impacted by this devastation. You know what I saw? This widespread devastation, physical, human, economic, and frankly also emotional, is genuinely historic. I want you all to know that SBA is on the ground in these communities across all 10 states impacted, and that will be there as long as it takes to help this region recover and rebuild. As we ensure small businesses have the resiliencies to survive and rebuild in the aftermath of natural disaster, SBA and our administration is also focused on ensuring our small businesses are resilient across the entire threat landscape, which includes cybersecurity. Small businesses play a vital role in our economy. As the backbone of our nation, they employ nearly half of U.S. workforce and create 2/3 of net new jobs. Your resilience and innovation is key to driving economic growth and fostering community development. Your participation in today's summit underscores your commitment to enhancing your business's security posture in an increasingly complex digital world. The speakers that you will hear from today have expertise and insights that we hope will be invaluable for you as you navigate a rapidly evolving cybersecurity landscape. The recent release of the National Cybersecurity Strategy from the White House underscores the critical importance of cybersecurity to the success of our economy, protecting our nation's critical infrastructure, and the imperative of empowering small businesses to bolster their cybersecurity defenses. Small businesses are often targets of cybersecurity threats due to their interconnectedness and reliance on digital tools. And I've seen that up close and personal in my own travel. We've seen small businesses impacted by state as well as non-state actors when it comes to cybersecurity. So as we delve into today's discussion, we'll explore a variety of digital tools and the increasing interdependencies they create. Innovations such as AI and quantum computing are reshaping the way we approach cybersecurity, offering both new opportunities and challenges. It's crucial for small business owners like yourself to stay informed and be adaptable in this ever-changing environment. What truly inspires me is the strength and creativity of US small business owners. Many of you are developing unique solutions that enhance security and protect sensitive information. Your entrepreneurial spirit will play a vital role in driving the future of cybersecurity. As we move forward today, I encourage you to engage actively in the discussions, ask questions, and connect with fellow attendees. There's much to learn from one another, and together we can fortify our defenses against cyber threats. So thank you again for being here today, and let's get started.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Miller with the SBA's Office of Entrepreneurial Development. On behalf of myself and all my colleagues here at OED and the SBA, we are excited to have you join us again today for the second week of the SBA's 2024 Cybersecurity Summit. And we're excited for the exciting lineup of experts and speakers you'll be hearing from today. We're going to get started with today's program with a fireside chat between OED's Associate Administrator at DD Dassault and Dell's Senior Vice President Erik Day. Following that, we're going to have a panel discussion between some of SBA's newest partners in cybersecurity, the Cybersecurity for Small Businesses Pilot Program Grant recipients. We'll then have an insightful discussion with entrepreneur and investor Chris Sacca and hear his thoughts and insights about small business and cybersecurity before we take a brief break for everyone to be able to get up, stretch your legs, and grab a quick refreshment. Following our break, we'll meet SBA Administrator Isabel Casillas Guzman as she speaks with a leading small business that's working hard in global cybersecurity. After Administrator Guzman's conversation, we'll tune into a roundtable discussion with leaders here at the SBA to learn how they and their teams support small businesses in everything from counseling to capital to contracting and, of course, to cybersecurity. And finally, to round out the 2024 Cybersecurity Summit here at SBA, we'll hear from experts about the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, and its requirements and recent updates. So get ready for an engaging and info-filled day. Stay engaged with us and with each other in the chat. Ask your questions, share your thoughts, and engage with your fellow entrepreneurs. And remember, we'll also be sharing the recording and resources from today and last week's segments in the near future. With that, Associate Administrator Dassault, the floor is yours.
All right, welcome to day 2 of our Cybersecurity Summit. We're so glad that you are here for this session, and I am with Erik Day of Dell Technologies. We're so excited that he's here today. Erik, thank you so much for joining us. Just for our audience to get to know you, can you talk a little bit about yourself and your role with Dell?
Sure, absolutely, Aditi, and to the whole SBA, thank you so much for having me and Dell Technologies present at this very, very important summit. As Aditi said, my name is Erik Day. I'm the Senior Vice President for our go-to-market and strategic transformation for small and medium businesses across our global Dell Technologies business. So I get to work with our entire sales and marketing team across the entire globe, figuring out how do we ultimately get the right technology, the right solutions to our small and medium business customers in order for them to grow and thrive their business.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erik. So let's start with the big question. What do you think are some of the biggest cybersecurity challenges facing small businesses today?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you look at small businesses specifically, capital continues to be their number one concern, right? How do they not only raise money, but ultimately, how do they keep sustaining revenues going for their companies so that they can continue to grow and thrive and be as successful as they possibly can? Now, the threat to cybersecurity is a real one, right? There are a lot of bad players out in the market. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry of people trying to hack into not only consumers, but especially small businesses because they are so vulnerable because they're just getting started out and a lot of them don't have a cybersecurity plan. And ultimately, I would say number one as simple as it sounds, is ransomware. Ransomware is an incredibly aggressive tactic that these players in the market have. They ultimately take your data, they hold it from ransom. They ultimately want to have small businesses pay a lot of money in order to get their data back, because small businesses know one of their most important asset is their data, especially their customers' data, especially if they're taking financial information from customers, et cetera. And when that ultimately happens, and there's potentially not funds to pay the ransomer, or they do it, it is a huge hit to the cash flow of small businesses. And there's been data out there that says, anywhere between 50 and 70%, depending on what research you look at, impact small businesses from actually staying in business when these attacks occur. So I would definitely think that is one of them. I would say the newest one that's coming up is around a lot of the disinformation and the deep faking that's actually happening because of this kind of increase to AI. The AI is going to be an incredible, positive, important technology advancement for the small and medium business community. But again, there's bad actors out there, and there are actors out there that can play with your brand, they can play with your marketing, they can play with a lot of different things that could ultimately hurt the outcome of what you're trying to accomplish. And so I think, in my opinion, those are the two big instances where either bad actors are trying to ultimately get at your data, or they're ultimately trying to mess with your brand or with your marketing strategy in order to be able to ultimately extort you and your company for money.
Yeah, that's really terrifying. I know that the more that I've learned as we prepare for this summit, and as I've as a former small business owner myself, like the idea of like my data being out there, as an individual, as a business, can be harvested and put together to fake me out. That's terrifying, and that's the reality that a lot of businesses live in. So can you talk a little bit about like what resources small businesses might be able to leverage to try to address some of these concerns? Like, are there any specific resources or support systems that exist out there for small businesses to try to tackle this and get educated?
Well, I won't only talk about resources, but I'll also talk about solutions. So on the resource side, by partnering with your technology provider and having this conversation, it is so incredibly important. There is a myth out there that just because you buy reliable technology from Dell Technologies or from one of our competitors, hopefully that doesn't happen very often, but in the case that it does, I think that there is this kind of almost unconscious bias around cybersecurity, that you just think that you're protected because you're buying reliable technology and hardware from these technology vendors. And that's true. And, from the likes of Intel to AMD to Qualcomm to you name the silicon provider, they're doing everything they can, and Microsoft, to do everything they can protect both the software and the silicon in order to be able to actually support you in any way possible. But it's very easy for these bad actors to actually get through some of those things and be able to get to some of where you're most vulnerable, especially as you use social media, as you use third-party vendors that might not be protected, et cetera. So it is still out there, and you need to make sure that this is a very high-end part of your technology strategy to ensure that you're putting extra protection onto your infrastructure in order to keep you protected. Now, how do you learn from that? Well, or how do you learn about it? Work with your technology provider, whether it's directly with a company like Dell Technologies, whether it's through your IT consultant, whether that's through a channel partner that you might be working with your IT. Make sure that you're working with them on your cybersecurity strategy. It should be at the very top priority of your tech strategy for your company, and they will have a lot of resources at their fingertips for sure. The other thing is go out there, look at reliable resources, especially from companies out there that are actually in this space, whether it's McAfee, whether it's Symantec, whether it's SecureWorks, whether it's CrowdStrike. There are really, really important and good companies out there that their websites and they just have a wealth of information out there to educate yourself, just to make sure that you get them from reliable sources, and you will be able to actually do that. Universities, all over the world are doing a ton of white papers and projects and papers regarding cybersecurity as well. So just make sure that you're going out to those reliable resources in order to be able to educate yourself on how cybersecurity is impacting small businesses today. And then finally, on the solution side, make sure that you're putting extra levels of protection on your technology, whether that is on the compute or the end user computing side, making sure that you're having the right software built in so that you get that extra level protection, whether you're ultimately building infrastructure with servers and storage. There's a ton of opportunity to put data security and data management and ultimate the right products on those pieces of data in order to protect it. So make sure that you have a plan with your technology provider on the solutions that you need to keep your data safe.
Yeah, I think that's some really great advice, Erik. I know that one of the pitfalls I think is out there is you've got these businesses that, you know what, they care about this. They want to do things right, and they actually make those investments and put the money into having a locked down cybersecurity strategy for their business. And then they're hanging out at the airport and they're bored and they use an unsecure Wi-Fi connection at the airport.
That's right.
And or they're like, oh, I'm going to download this like little app on my phone just to like kill some time and play a card game or something like that. And some of those things can introduce those vulnerabilities, you know,
That's right.
and really negate all that good work that you've done to lock down your business. And so,
That's right.
you know, a lot of those strategies I think are really important to make sure that everything's partitioned, everything's locked down. You know,
Yeah.
I'm paranoid. I'm glad I have two devices as a government person, my personal one and my government one. It lowers the stakes, but some people are, you know, trying to do it all in one spot, which actually makes sense. But, you know, that's not me.
Yeah, and things
but I
like
think those are some really great challenges.
It's such a good point that you said, right? You have to make sure that you have you know, VPNs, double, triple authentications. I know that as a user, those things can ultimately cut down on productivity time, but nothing is more unproductive than losing your data or ultimately getting exposed to some of these cybersecurity attacks. So there is a lot of opportunity for you to actually lock that stuff down and keep it away from bad actors. But you know, you mentioned this, Aditi, a little bit too. I mean, you ultimately are part of one of the most important agencies, in my opinion, in the federal government, because you are there to help protect and ultimately help fund and help give the right resources to our small business community. Can you talk a little bit about the same? Right, one of the things that I think is good is to use the SBA as a resource to get information. Can you tell us a little bit about what SBA is doing to ultimately give the education out to small businesses around this topic?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Erik. This is absolutely one of those things. This Cybersecurity Summit, it's our third year doing it. We've got the history of it on our YouTube channel at sba.gov. But I think what you really were striking on in terms of what's a reliable resource, our .gov pages are pretty reliable resources. And it's not just us at SBA. There are a lot of different parts of the federal government ecosystem. You know, a lot of business owners, really, they only think of like the IRS, and that's like their only interaction with government. But government's so much bigger than that, and you're actually interacting with it in so many ways. And people don't always know that we have really great partners at places like CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And they have some really great direct to small business resources. Our partners at both the Department of Treasury and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have really great information, brochures, pamphlets, internet things about financial institutions and, you know, the fraud and the deception that happens in those industries. So really a lot of different places with a .gov are good places to go. But of course, you have to be careful. You know, government, as great as we are, we don't do a lot of proactive outreach. A lot of us don't have a lot of those budgets. So if the SBA is emailing you saying, hey, we've got a good deal for you, you might want to check carefully. It might have that spoofed .gov email, but you want to dig into that, make sure that it is legitimate, you know, do the classic thing of call the district office for SBA or contact us directly so that you know that what you're receiving is legitimate. But definitely come to us to find these resources. And then you, Erik, mentioned our university partners. My office particularly, we work with lots of universities across the country who are our partners in our small business development centers. And our small business development centers are generally great sources of information for how to start your business, how to grow your business, how to get that capital that you mentioned, how to access financial support. support for your business. But one of the things that some of our centers specialize in is cybersecurity. And I have to give a specific call out to the University of Delaware for their really industry-leading research and support of small businesses and their cybersecurity posture. So they have some really excellent resources. We've just awarded them additional funds so that they can expand the use of their resources across our entire SBDC and resource partner network more generally. But they're really, on the cutting edge of this kind of research and also providing of information to small businesses. So I have to definitely plug that as a place where you can go and get good, reliable information. So the .edus, the .govs, those are definitely good places.
I agree.
Again, with that culture of skepticism, if we're coming to you, okay, come to us too. It won't be there.
DT, you just jogged my memory. One of the programs that we've launched at Dell Technologies recently, and this is available for small businesses everywhere, especially if you get with those right cybersecurity partners on the software side. But ultimately, there is a way for you to add an app into your Microsoft 365 products, especially email. A lot of times these bad actors ultimately do get through email. And when you had said, hey, be very curious about if you're getting an email and make sure that you're doing the double checking, there is a way to actually put a phishing app in your Outlook programming in order for you to be able to ultimately communicate with your backend software to be able to report any potential phishing. One of the things that we do a lot of the time at Dell is we do these webinars and these trainings to be able to educate people on how to actually observe or detect some of these potential fraudulent emails that are coming in. They'll look like they're coming from your credit card. They'll look like they're coming from a government agency. They'll look like they're coming from maybe even somebody that might pretend that they know you, but they don't, and they're only phishing to be able to get your information.
Right.
By clicking on that phishing application that you can put in your Outlook, it can ultimately report into your software. It can actually clean that up. It can actually catch these phishing emails and get them out of your network in order for them not to become a bigger problem. And it just tells you that, make sure that you're doing the right training and the right resources. Again, companies like Dell and many companies that you're working with will actually do these webinars specifically on how to train you on some of these things. It is so very important that you're educating yourself and your entire staff around making sure that you keep these bad actors out of your environment, because they will find different ways to get in. Email, social media being two of the biggest ones. So be definitely proud of that. But my guess, DT, is that the SBA also provides these training programs. And I think we can be using this a little bit to kind of get that word out. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the training programs that you all might be running at SBA as well?
Yeah. So obviously, the Cybersecurity Summit is a big one. We do it every October as a part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we do try to get tactical with some of the things that we discuss, and with all the different experts in the industries. Like you were just talking about, seeing if you can embed some security within your own email program. I think that's the kind of insight that we're hoping that all the practitioners that are in this space are sharing through this platform in the Cybersecurity Summit. I did also mention the University of Delaware program, or overall, and the program that we just provided some additional funding for to get across the country. That particular program is actually for our counseling network. So SBA and my office, we support through grants what we call our resource partners. And this is the small business development centers, women's business centers, veterans business opportunity centers. There's an organization called SCORE that provides mentorship directly to small businesses from either former or current executives who have experiences like yours or unlike yours, but you can still learn from. And the idea is with this cybersecurity training that the University of Delaware has developed is to get more and more of our counselors trained as reliable sources for you to go to and meet with locally and say, hey, here's my computer, here's some of the stuff that I'm doing. Like, do you have any advice on what's happening here? Or do you know where I can go to get that advice? So we're trying to strengthen our counseling network. They've also provided some funding to different states through a partnership to increase just the general small business content that we have around cybersecurity. And so this is our third year of that program, and a few different states are experimenting basically with what resources really resonate with small business audiences, and actually get them to take that first step or that second step in terms of improving their cybersecurity. And I think that's like just really important. Is this is sometimes an overwhelming amount of information, but you got to do something and think about it a little bit every day, frankly. Is there something that you could be changing, or is there something that you could be learning about? And I think that continuous learning piece, I mean, that's a lot of reason why people become entrepreneurs. They don't want to do the same thing every day. And that continuous learning opportunity here, especially around cybersecurity, this is the whole like ounce of prevention, right? That's really the thing that happens here. So we've got a lot out there, and our other agency partners also have a lot of those resources and trainings. We try not to replicate, but sometimes you'll find that CISA, or like I said, the CFPB, Treasury, other agencies have really good information out there about specific problems that you might be facing. So, so they're kind of going back to that thought of like things are always changing. Erik, do you want to talk about some of the emerging trends or emerging threats, and some of the ways that maybe Dell and other corporations in this space are trying to prepare for supporting small businesses around those threats and meeting that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned this in my kind of opening, but one of the things that is massive trend right now is artificial intelligence. Well, now there's been levels of artificial intelligence for a long time, right? There has been machine learning and automation out there for a long time. But as generative AI has come into speed, and with all of this additional technology, with the faster processors, with the GPUs, with the NPUs, right? There's just so much more power, so these models can work so much faster. Now, with anyone or any company that is looking to get into or to automate their business or to use generative AI or any AI to just make their business more productive, which is going to be a majority of you out there, data is the ultimate neutralizer in the kind of Gen AI and artificial intelligence journey. Is that the models will pick up your own personal data in order to actually run these models, make your business more productive, make your team more productive. It really is going to be game changing over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, the fact of the remains that in small business, in the small business arena, a majority of these companies, or our small business companies, are very native to the public cloud. We love our friends at AWS, at Azure, at Google Cloud. We partner with them on a daily basis. But ultimately, putting all of your data in one basket, as I call, rather than all your eggs in one basket, we are ultimately seeing people understand that the need to diversify where they actually manage their data, in order to be able to not only make the data management more affordable, but also thinking about cybersecurity. So being able to build some sort of data management, data backup strategy within your company is really important to diversify the workloads between the public cloud and almost a private cloud. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You can do it in a co-location. You can do it at a cloud service provider. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do it. You can do it right in your own offices or in your own space as well. And that ultimately does provide not only cost management, but a lot of data security management as well. Because if you do, for example, get hacked, or you ultimately do get ransomed, by having really good backup and security, you're able to ultimately be able to tell those ransomers, no, I'm not going to pay that, because you did what you needed to do to back up that data, so that if they did try to threaten you with holding your data hostage, you could ultimately reformat it, redo it, ultimately bring it back from your backup in order to be able to make you a little bit more safe and secure. So there are a lot of these strategies, and the diversification of data also make it really more difficult for these bad actors to be able to try to get into your data. So a lot of different trends around this space, around data diversification and data management and data security.
Yeah, and that's got to be a tough call for small businesses. A lot of folks, I'm sure, are like, well, wait a minute, didn't 10 years ago you tell me I had to put all my data in one spot and that was the most secure way to do it because it'll be cost efficient and all of that. Well, that's kind of that's the hard part is, I kind of think about, we talked about how these bad actors are going to come to the softest point of wherever you are in terms of your cybersecurity. And I mean, they're also going to learn and try to figure out how to get to exactly where you are, kind of no matter what strategy. So it's just kind of part of that that day to day. You have to, I don't know, sometimes it's hard. You have to like eat 3 square meals a day. You have to remember to go to bed. These types of things. This is something that I think is that kind of there's a repetition there. There's a, you just have to keep going on this in order to get to the next place in the day to day. And that, I know that is a challenge for small businesses.
I mean, if you think about it, Aditi, I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, this cybersecurity data, like kind of data hacking. It's a huge, huge industry. They're going to go wherever they think the data is going to get them the most amount of money, right? Nobody is prone to not get these attacks against them, which is the reason why the strategy ultimately has to change to kind of find new strategies and a way to fake them out, so you can ultimately run under the radar of you ultimately getting attacked. And yes, you're absolutely right. There was a time, hey, go to one place, it will make you secure. We've gone to more of, hey, more diversification. Not only is cost effective, but it also can be incredibly important for your data security.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these conversations, you start talking about data and customer data and big data and sometimes companies maybe feel like it's like not applicable to them, right? Like, well, I just run my corner store. Like, I don't have cybersecurity vulnerability. And it's like, well, actually, if you haven't upgraded your payment or your point of sale system, if you haven't even like restarted that thing, maybe hopefully you're on a new enough technology that like updates are getting pushed automatically. Like, do you have any advice for any of like the so-called low-tech businesses? Because are there even low-tech businesses in 2024, right, that don't have these vulnerabilities?
It's such a fantastic question, Aditi. There isn't. It's very difficult for you to be a successful small business in 2024 if technology is not playing a massive part of who you are. It's funny because you had just said, Aditi, in one of your first answers to the question I asked you about, hey, it's hard for me to get resources out there in order to be able to get our message across. There are such inexpensive, easy kind of turnkey ways to get marketing programs and stuff out there these days. I mean, it's so easy and it's so inexpensive. And a lot of these small, main street small businesses are starting to use those platforms in order to be able to get the word out, to be able to do some type of CRM management so they can get their customers keep coming back. But those are all little ways that these hackers can kind of find their way into your data. And you're not only protecting your customer data, you're protecting your employee data. Whether you have 2 employees or 10 employees, people's personal data are really important. And if you lose any type of faith in your employee base that their own personal data is not secure, it's a big challenge. And so I think that's the reason why even these smaller or newly teched industries or these main street companies are ultimately going to have to find a way into thinking about how they protect it by picking, to your point, the right POS vendor, by understanding where that data is going. When you pick that vendor, how do you get access to that data in order to be able to use it for targeted marketing and other marketing campaigns, whether that's an email campaign or a social media campaign, all of which is in your power to do that. But again, all of those little things could add up to customers getting at your data, and that's ultimately what could provide the problem.
Right. And I think also kind of going back, I always think about how much data is out there now. And even if you don't have very sophisticated systems, you're not doing a lot of like online things. And the bottom line is now with generative AI, as you were talking about, the emails from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was like, oh, I'm a foreign prince and I'm going to help you become wealthy. And you kind of were like, no, you're not. Like, it's easy to kind of call it for what it is. But now you've got an employee or your mom or somebody out there on social media. You've got this AI that can write this email that, it's like kind of true. Like, you're like, oh, well, I know that this employee of mine loves golfing. And because, we talk about what he does every week and he's always out on the golf courses and these types of things. And now you're getting an email that says, hey, it's Jim. I just finished this last round found out on the course, and hey, can you finish paying the invoice? I totally forgot to do it while I'm out on vacation. Here's the account number, just like throw it at me, right? Like, here's a picture from the golf course I'm on.
Yeah,
And you know that he travels there regularly. Like, if he's out there posting on social media about his golfing escapades, like, it's very likely that you could get an email that specific, or that kind of with that kind of specificity. You know?
And DT, it's not only the email, it's this little guy. I hope it's coming through my green screen, but your phone is now connected to everything. And if you are a small business, I can guarantee you that you have connected your phones into your network some way or the other. I talked about firewalls. I talked about dual and triple authentication. But one of the ways that these scammers are getting into small business networks is not even through the PC anymore. It's through your phone, right? They've figured out how to SMS you. And here's the best advice I can give to all the small businesses that are listening to this. If you get an email or you get an SMS or a text message or any type of messaging on social media, whether it's X or Facebook or Instagram or a DM or anything, and you do not recognize that person or that email or that thing, no matter how convincing it looks like, delete it and report it to junk. Because I will tell you that if they want you back, or if they need something from you, or you didn't, it's real, they will come back to you and they will give you more information that it's actually legit. I cannot tell you how many text messages just in the last week I've deleted and reported to junk of, hello, hi, Erik, how are you? I've missed you so much. And I'm like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know the phone number. And then sure enough, I delete a report to junk. I never hear from that person again. So just be cautious, be on the lookout, take these trainings, work with reputable companies that can talk to you about cybersecurity, partner with agencies like the SBA to get the resources and the trainings that you need to better educate yourself. I'm going to go back to the beginning. My biggest fears is that in the small business community, especially in that kind of small office, home office, kind of Main Street, you don't think this pertains to you. It does, right? It does. And when those scammers get to your information and they get to your customers, it could be detrimental to your business. And we do not want to have that happen to you, which is the reason why we're doing this talk today.
Absolutely. So I guess maybe we can wrap up on you were heading in that direction, but I always feel like sometimes you talk about cybersecurity, it feels so scary. It feels so like, oh goodness, what do I do? Do you have any like kind of closing thoughts or messages of hope, or want to say something really nice about technology? Something to leave us on a positive note. Tell us how your golf game's going. I don't know if you're
it's
that
good.
guy.
I do not like golf. I mean I like it, but I don't play it. I'm a terrible golfer. But
I'm very bad at it.
Here's the positive. Technology is changing our world for the better, right? It's making advancements in medicine. It's figuring out how to get internet to the most remote places of the world who never thought they would ever get broadband or internet in their life, to educate people all across the world in very impoverished places. They're figuring out ways for us to get more and cleaner energy. Technology is figuring out ways for us to be able to deal with a pandemic faster than we dealt with the last one. I mean, you think of the laundry list of things that technology, generative AI, all these things are going to do. There are 9 positives to 1 negative, right? And so if you really think about it in that way, that we are protecting these amazing advancements that are going to make our world better to live with, better for our kids, our grandkids, and all of the people in between. That's what we should all be thinking about. And that's why cybersecurity is so important, is because we are ultimately using cybersecurity to protect the next generation and the generation after that, to ensure that they get these major and important innovations. And those innovations are coming from all of you. That the small and medium businesses are the innovation and the backbone of the economy of this country. And this is all about keeping your ideas, your thoughts, your amazing innovations as safe as we possibly can, because I am convinced, and I know DT is as well, that you are going to change the world.
Absolutely. I was going to try to add to that, but I don't need to, Erik. That was just such a, you really struck that chord of exactly how I think about our small businesses and why I do the work that I do. I always say I could go out and make a lot more money as a consultant, but like, what, I don't want to do that here. I love doing the impactful change, and it is really supporting small businesses and getting to where exactly they need to be. And sometimes that's a little bit more of a defensive posture. So,
That's right.
Erik, thank you. And thank Dell Technologies so much for giving us your time to support this great event today. Really grateful for your insights on this topic, and really look forward to continuing to work with you on future things like this and others. So thank you all for joining this session today, and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon with the rest of our programming. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Erik Markulier, proud Regional Administrator of SBA's Region 8 territories, and it's an honor to moderate today's panel on cybersecurity best practices for small businesses. As we all know, small businesses are the backbone of our economy, but they often face unique challenges when it comes to cybersecurity. Cyber threats are increasingly sophisticated and targeted, and small businesses are frequently in the crosshairs. Today's discussion is critical. Not only will we explore the common vulnerabilities small businesses face, but we'll also provide practical advice and resources that can help you safeguard your operations. SBA Cybersecurity for Small Business pilot program aims to enhance the cybersecurity resilience of small businesses across the nation. This initiative provides funding to support the development and implementation of cybersecurity training, resources, and best practices tailored specifically for small business owners. By fostering a safer online environment, the program helps mitigate risks and protect small businesses from cyber threats, ensuring they can operate confidently in a digital landscape. Through this grant, state government offices and their affiliates ensure that small businesses can access essential tools and guidance to strengthen their cybersecurity measures effectively. I am so thrilled to introduce our esteemed panelists today, each of whom have partnered with SBA under this pilot program, and they bring a wealth of experience and expertise to this topic. First, I will introduce Dr. Ashley Podrosky. Give us a wave, Ashley. Hello. From Dakota State University in South Dakota. Dr. Ashley Podrosky is the Vice President of Research and Economic Development at Dakota State University. Dr. Podrosky is a sought-after speaker and keynote for cybersecurity events around the country. Her research teams have received over $15 million in competitive grants from the National Security Agency, National Science Foundation, Small Business Administration, and others. In addition to her academic and professional work, she has a strong passion for increasing gender diversity in cybersecurity. She is the co-founder of CyberHer, a cyber outreach program which has reached thousands of people from K through 12 to college age and beyond. Next, I'd like to introduce Troy Richardson. Say hello, Troy. University of Texas, San Antonio at the SVDC there. Troy Richardson is the Business Development Specialist for the University of Texas, San Antonio SBDC Center for Government Contracting and training to clients in the region. Mr. Richardson has 22 years of service with the federal government, to include active military and civilian service, specializing in security, intelligence, cybersecurity training, program management, and analysis. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Stu Steiner with Eastern Washington University. Hello, Stu. Stu Steiner is currently an assistant professor of computer science at Eastern Washington University. His current areas of research are the smart grid, the Internet of Things, IoT, cybersecurity, and web application security, with an emphasis on intrusion prevention, detection, and security operations. Steiner has been teaching computer science courses for more than 20 years at all levels in the curriculum. Steiner brings a unique practical and operational perspective to cybersecurity operations research. Together, he sheds light on strategies and tools available to you and small business owners. Finally, I'd like to introduce Paul Johnson at the University of Wyoming SBDC. Hello, Paul. Paul spent 25 years with an entrepreneurial-minded small business in the educational publishing market and attained an international footprint and experienced sustained substantial growth. While in the publishing industry, Paul served as an editor-in-chief, chief marketing strategist, product development specialist, and instructional designer. His business specialties include marketing strategy formulation and deployment, staff development, and business growth strategy. Paul is currently the program manager for the Cybersecurity for Small Business pilot program at the Wyoming SBDC network. He previously served as the SBDC Associate State Director for 5 years. All right. With all that said, thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. We are going to dive right in now to the important stuff and the content that small businesses need to hear. So to kick us off, Ashley, I'm going to go to you because we're going to start with some fundamentals. We have about 40 minutes to talk about everything cyber. So let's get into this right now. So as a small business owner, what are the first steps I should take, to assess the cybersecurity posture of my business?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ekta. You have to understand what your current landscape is. What do you have in terms of assets? What kind of technology do you have integrated into your business? Who do you rely on as a third-party vendor to perform credit card transactions or data processing, for example? And then understand the risk that that has to your organization if compromised. Certain areas would be larger than others. If you had a database of your customers and their financial information, that would be an area that you would want to emphasize. But take stock of what's critical to your business, understand what you have, and then look at ways that you currently secure it, and then go from there to set your priorities. CISA in nearly every state has individuals that can help you conduct a risk assessment for your business. And so this can help you understand what you have, what you're currently doing, where your gaps are, and then how you can better protect or mitigate that risk that introduces into your environment.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So there are some easy things businesses can do, such as password policies, updating software. I'd like to go through a few implement assessments or mitigating risk in a small business. So Troy, I'm going to go to you to talk a little bit about what are the best practices for creating a robust password policy? Let's start with that.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for having me. Of course, I love being here with everybody. So, small businesses face difficult challenges every day, and they just don't have the resources, whether it be money or the in-house knowledge, to necessarily fight the cybersecurity war. So it's important, regardless of the business industry or how many employees they have or anything like that, to start off with basic cybersecurity hygiene principles. And one of them is a password policy. Those passwords should be, multi, 10 to 12 characters with special characters, passphrases even possibly. And then, of course, we don't want them to reuse passwords anywhere, because if that one gets compromised, then it's compromised for multiple sites. So you have to have all these multiple passwords. And I'm old, I can't remember one password or two. So, encourage your employees and in your business, use a password manager to secure those passwords. Now, that all comes with some risk. Obviously, if you use a password manager and it gets compromised somehow and they get that master password, then all those passwords are compromised. But that's one of the questions that you have to answer as a small business owner, whatever you're dealing with in cybersecurity, is the risk versus reward. And only you as that business owner can determine what your acceptable risk is.
Do you have any suggestions for what password tools people can use to remember their passwords? Or anyone can jump in on this one. I've heard of LastPass and a few others. Any suggestions?
I'm familiar with a few of them. Me personally, I've used RoboForm, and this is not an endorsement on any of them, of course. RoboForm, I've used Zoho. That's what I'm using currently now. I mean, there's a lot of different options out there, but when you're trying to choose a solution, whether it be a password manager or a firewall, antivirus, anti-malware, there's a bunch of different options out there for you to choose. Just do your due diligence and select the one that best fits your needs.
Thank you so much. That is so important. Passwords, they are frustrating at times to remember all of them, but having those simple tools to help you is very beneficial. All right, Paul, if we can talk a little bit about multi-factor authentication, turning on that MFA on all the different applications you're using. Why is that important?
Well, just because what Troy said, if they only have a password to crack, then they're in. But if they don't have your phone in their hand and don't know how to get into it, then you're safe. Well, you're never safe, of course, but you're safer. But just one word on password managers. Cost is always a factor in our smallest of businesses, and there are some open source password managers out there that are reputable. So I would say search open source password managers and see if that fits into your business model, because you can do it for no cost, and they are good products. But on multi-factor, I always say I was so annoyed when Amazon put multi-factor authentication into place, and I had to punch in that dumb code every time I ordered one thing. And it's been a couple of years now, and now if a company does not use multi-factor authentication, I may not be purchasing from them or using them for anything else. So I think it's become so commonplace, and now it's available to the smallest of businesses through, I think, Google Suite offers multi-factor authentication now. You can turn that on. So it's a low entry point into that, but so important to consider for an extra layer of security.
Fantastic.
Can I ask a follow-up question with that? Because a lot of us use SMS versus like a key fob type thing. Do you have any kind of suggestions on which way to go? Because there's a lot of concern these days with SMS authentication, multi-factor authentication. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, that's probably a little deeper than my knowledge. I'm mostly a communications guy. If our cyber expert was here, he could answer that, but maybe Troy or Ashley, you guys might have something to add.
I think it's dependent on the environment that you're in and the regulations that you have and the data that you're trying to protect. I'm fairly comfortable with using out-of-band communications. So if I'm on my computer and I get my MFA to my phone through text message, I'm fairly comfortable with that. Typically, you get another interaction that alerts you that you logged in as well. And so you have that logging mechanism on the other side that, you just logged into this account, verify if it was yours or not. So I use key fobs in certain areas of my life that require those. But in general, areas where I protect my own information and here at the university, I'm very comfortable with SMS as a MFA approach.
That's a great follow-up question, Dr.
Sorry, you cut out there for a sec. As just so people know what a key fob looks like, it's just something like this. You plug it in the computer. Sorry, you cut out on me. Sorry. This is just what a key fob looks like, and you plug it in, you set it up, and then it's like a fingerprint. You just press your finger on it to authenticate. The other thing I want to say about SMS is make sure that the name of the business is in that SMS. Because in the past it used to just say, here's your code, and people used to spoof that. So make sure that when you get that SMS text, it says, this is from XYZ company, Amazon, like Paul talked about earlier, just to, again, take that second and verify what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. So Stu, I'm going to go over to you, Dr. Steiner, for another question. Something that happens a lot that I really love to touch on. We can't talk enough about phishing, and those types of things that occur on a daily basis. We all get those emails asking us for information that we should not be providing. But how can, what is that looking at like these days? Because it's become very mature. And how can we train our employees to be aware of what those phishing emails look like?
I think number one, they're so sophisticated. They're the old days of major spelling mistakes and grammar errors are long gone. With ChatGPT and AI writing phishing emails, those days are gone. I think the as I said before, I think it's important to stop and think. And I personally never click on a link in an email, even if I'm even if I'm expecting that email, I will not click on a link in an email. But one of the simple things to do is just make sure that the name and the return address matches the name of who it's coming from. I get that one on, here's your Netflix invoice every day or your PayPal invoice every day. And it's got, some name I don't recognize. It's not the Netflix name or whatever. And then it just looks weird. So if it looks weird, stop and take a breath and think about it. If you only can click on the link, hold your cursor over the link and it will pop up to what it's going to go to. And a lot of email programs now have like a safe link, so they'll kind of verify that it's a valid link or not. But be very careful in clicking on links. The other thing that is really coming in the phishing emails, and this was just on our local news here, was here's your house off of Google Maps, and I've got your web browser history, and I'm going to expose you out there to the world if you don't pay me X amount of money in Bitcoin. Those are all scams. They're all phishing emails just to try and get you to click on that link again to say, oh, here's that video that I wasn't, that they claim they have on you or whatever. A lot of those go into my spam filter, but some of them still get through. So, really look for, there's really kind of 5 major points. The old days of is there spelling mistakes? Does the sender match? Is there that sense of urgency, right? Phishing emails are all that sense of urgency, fear of missing out. 1 day only, your password's expired. You need to immediately change your password. And so just stop, take that breath, really investigate, and if you need to send an email, go to the website, whatever, but try not to click on the link unless you have no other option.
I think that last thing you said is so important. You can just type in the website rather than clicking on that link to find the same information and see if it's actually from the right place. Mm-hmm. That is great advice. We're going to move on to something that we are dealing with more often with small businesses and businesses in general, that businesses have gone to a hybrid workforce or even a remote workforce. During the pandemic, businesses found out, hey, this is something we can do. And now we're way past that, but we still have many businesses allowing individuals to work from home, many times using their own devices. So I'd like to open up the floor here and see, what do you think is the right policy to have in place for a business that does have remote employees and may be using their own devices? Or should they be using their own devices at all? I'll open that up to the floor to see who would like to take that one.
I'm never a fan of commingling data that doesn't need to be commingled. And so if you are a small business and you have your employees who are working remotely, ensure that the device that they're using to conduct your business is your device, because we don't need other traffic being on there. We don't need other websites being visited that don't have to be visited. And so that's important to make sure you have that separation. They should be using VPNs, virtual private network, to ensure that their access is secure as well. MFA, as we talked about, that's key. But then, one of the things I say is that good hackers, they don't hack in, they log in. And so every opportunity that you have your data on a different system that someone can compromise is an opportunity for that to be leaked someplace. And so being able to separate and reduce your risk by having work devices and personal devices, I think is the way to go.
So I've heard about bring your own device policies, or, if a business, I agree with you. Businesses should not be mingling devices and information traffic or flow. But if there is a personal device being used, because I know small business owners, you're out there and you're like, oh, I can't afford another laptop right now, so I'm kind of doing both on my one, or the one other employee I have is using theirs that they already have. What policy should they have in place for that device and that employee? And is there a template somewhere where they can find, maybe in the North Star program on asbdc.org, Paul? I'm not sure. Is there a place where they can go to find some templates or advice on working with employees that are using their own devices?
I'll jump in. So as a small business, you have to remember, if you're allowing your employees to use their own devices, you have no control over that device. You have no control of what they do on their off time, or even when they're working, what they're browsing, or what they're doing. So you're opening up your business for more risk. Again, it goes back to that risk question. How much risk are you willing to accept as a business owner? So if you do have, employees using bring your own devices and that type of thing, you have to make sure that, if they are connecting to your cloud, your network, or whatever it may be, that they are, just like Ashley said, using a VPN, or, doing all these precautionary things to make sure that they're not compromising your data or your network or anything like that, and lowering your risk altogether. As far as the policies go out there, and this goes for anything. If you go to your Google machine and type up BYOD policy, you're gonna get thousands and thousands of hits out there for templates, and those are all great. Why reinvent the wheel? Small business owners, they're doing finance, they're doing marketing, and they don't have time to create their own policy. So these are a great thing. But just make sure it comes from somewhere reputable. And the most important thing is, even though it's a template, if you hand it to your employee or somebody else, they should not be able to tell it's a template. It should be tailored to your business, your operations, and your particular environment.
And I would say, Troy, I don't know if you guys will agree with this approach, but ChatGPT 4 is really a step ahead in the ChatGPT technology. And I have used it to write policies that are very robust, and I ask it to cite its sources and where the information comes from. So I'm just not asking blindly a question, but I am finding that to be a great resource for small businesses that don't have the time to create these things from scratch. But I totally agree, Troy. Edit it in your own voice and personalize it, and make it yours. But it's a great way to start with these complex issues where small businesses don't have the expertise themselves to spend a lot of time researching. So I'll just throw that out there for what it's worth.
That's great. And at the end of this conversation, we'll talk a little bit more about resources and where you can go to get that additional eyes on whatever you're doing, whether we completely agree with it or not with the bring your own device plan. We know some of you are, but we need to make sure that you are working on putting the right pieces in place. Dr. Steiner, did you want to add one more thing before we move on?
One thing I try and encourage with the small businesses I work with, and I have many that have a single laptop and it's their personal laptop and their business laptop. I encourage them to make a second account and just use it as their business account, and keep their emails separate from, we all want to be on the same account because we can do our business stuff and our personal stuff at the same time, but try and have some discipline and make a second account, and that's your business account, and you only use your business account from 8 to 5 where you're doing your business work. It doesn't really lower your risk that much, but a smidge difference between mingling your, like Ashley said, mingling your data, your personal data, and your business data. It has a small separation line that makes it a little bit easier, but a little bit more difficult, because then again, you want to pop over to the other account and check your email on your personal side of things. But it's a small step that can help you in large ways.
Absolutely. All right. So we've talked a lot about the simple things that businesses should check on and put in place when it comes to cybersecurity. Not to pile it on, but there are regulations and policies that small businesses have to meet. And I understand that there could be some penalties associated with not meeting those. So I'd like to start off with you, Ashley, on a little bit of, what are you seeing as kind of overarching regulations and policies that small businesses need to be aware of? And I know by state that can change, and we've got great representation of different areas of our country here today. But what do you see as really important, quick, bits of information we need to get out to small businesses today when it comes to following regulation?
Yeah, you nailed it, Ekta, that regulations are often state by state. And when you have an online boutique, perhaps you're in South Dakota, and yet you have customers all across the country, that's a challenge, because there's not a lot of federal statutes that go into that area, especially on data breaches. And that's one of the big things that small businesses need to understand is, if there's a data breach, what's my responsibility? How do I help mitigate? If you're talking about international, you have GDPR. and that's going to get into a whole nother level. So the question's a little challenging to answer simply because our geographic boundaries don't necessarily align with regulations and reach towards all of them. So I would encourage them to understand what data breach means in their state. What data breach is, it's different in every state. It's usually a number, you have to have certain identifiable information with a certain number of impacted individuals, and then you have a responsibility that has to occur. And so understand what it is in the state that you live in, and there is one in every state. We were one of the last to adopt it, so I do know that, but every state is a little bit different.
Yeah. So Paul, when you work with small businesses, where would you send them to maybe take a quick look and maybe find, what policies do they need to be aware of, such as in Wyoming?
Right. So we have a member of our staff who is pretty much the licensing and certification expert for the state. So I would send them to them first to look up those things. And, frankly, most of the people involved in our cybersecurity program, I wouldn't say most, but a large chunk of them are small healthcare providers. And, HIPAA regulations are very strict as far as email communication, and we've helped a lot of people close up that gap. So, and if you're running any sort of small educational institution, you've got FERPA requirements there too that you need to be aware about. So those are a couple of the things. And if you're a government contractor, which many of our small businesses are subcontractors, the Department of Defense just published their final rule for the cybersecurity maturity model certification. So that's one of the things that we are focusing on with our small businesses, is to be in compliance with that CMMC, at least up to level 2. So
I heard that was a really exciting 400-page read.
Yes,
that many of you already took a look at the other day.
I haven't gotten quite through it yet.
But there are a lot of changes on CMMC, but that's why we're having the Cyber Summit. This is a part of it, so that you can make sure you visit some of those other workshops we have going on throughout the summit as well. On another topic, I kind of just want to refocus on one thing. Small businesses don't always think that they have the money to implement cybersecurity best practices. And I know that there are some very cost-efficient solutions. We touched on some of those here today, like open sourced password management tools, right, Paul? But what, and we touched a little bit on VPN, right, Ashley? You mentioned that as well. But what are some cybersecurity tools, like, let's refocus on this, and maybe some software that you recommend businesses take a look at? Again, we're not recommending one over the other, but we know of some that work well based on the consulting and servicing you've provided throughout the year. So any suggestions that you'd like to put out there for businesses? Because I'd really like for them to leave here today having some things that they can implement and take a look at right away. Dr. Steiner, Troy, anybody?
Antivirus, anti-malware, it's built in. If you're on a Windows box, it's built in with your Windows box. Not necessarily software, but making sure you're installing the updates on everything. That's, open source, very free. For if you're on a Windows machine, you automatically get your Tuesday updates unless it's an emergency. I would, depending on your business, it really kind of depends on your business and what your data is. I'm trying to think. Ashley, jump back in here because I'm blanking right now.
Well, I think about NIST. NIST has frameworks, and so it's not just about the tools or utilities, but NIST has a lot of great frameworks that you can look at. And CISA has some game plans. One of the things that I like that CISA is really focused on is being action focused, and they want to make sure that if you have physical devices, here's some steps that you can take to protect them. So, and they will conduct free risk assessments for you to help you understand. And they have tools and resources where they can monitor your domain for activity and send you reports on a monthly basis as well. So I like what Stu said on the endpoint side, and then thinking about what you have for frameworks, and then again with what our federal partners have at CISA.
Well, you mentioned CISA here, and I think that's a big one when it comes to resources and be able to get information that you need as a small business. And I think some agencies are doing a really great job of actually breaking it down and providing some easy to understand documents as a small business you can kind of start with, even some business planning opportunities. Which ones do you recommend quite a bit from when working with small businesses? Paul, let's start with you.
You cut out for just a second there. Are we still talking about antivirus and those kinds of things?
Yeah, actually, I was just asking about resources that you would recommend businesses go to find some of those easy to read, get started documents on cybersecurity, or even not even easy to read, get started. We have a lot of businesses here that are mature and probably need some more CMMC type of support, right? Especially with the new 400-page document that just came out.
Yeah.
So which websites or organizations do you frequently send businesses to?
So I've been beating the drum for the Cyber Readiness Institute for the full year that we've had this program. It's a public-private partnership, and it provides 2 levels of online cybersecurity, cyber readiness training that are really well done. As an instructional designer, you see a lot of stuff like this that is poorly done, but this is really well done and focuses on human behavioral aspects of cybersecurity. So it's great for onboarding new employees, training all your current employees. It's like a 2-hour self-paced course. That is an excellent resource, and it's no cost also. So it's we've recommended that to everyone we've worked with in this program.
Yeah, that is an exceptional program, really well run as well. They've been working with a lot of partners to produce what they have. Ashley, you mentioned CISA as well. CISA is Cybersecurity Infrastructures Agency. People have heard about it, but they really do dive in for small businesses. So they have some great resources as well.
Yeah, and they've had a really good partnership with Carnegie Mellon as they work to define their methods and frameworks that they use. So it removes the bulk. I've been involved with risk assessments that are a mile wide and an inch deep, and you're wondering where you're going to focus. But what I like about their approach is that it's very directed towards what a small business needs, and you're going to have objectives that you can understand and fulfill.
Yeah. Great. Troy or Dr. Steiner?
So you can call me Stu, by the way. But
Stu.
Interestingly enough, there's some great videos on Google, on YouTube, that small businesses can watch that are free, depending on, again, their business. There's some great cybersecurity practitioners on YouTube that are doing their content for small businesses. And as crazy as that sounds, check out YouTube and see what's out there for just not necessarily frameworks, but just some good, simple, helpful videos on what your next step should be.
Yeah, and what I like to tell my clients is, cybersecurity, it's not a sprint. It's unfortunately a marathon that never ends. And the first thing you have to do is start. And as a business owner, when I talk to the clients, they're business owners. They're not cybersecurity. They're not IT. And if you hand them this framework, whether it be NIST, CSF, or hey, you have to follow PCI DSS compliance or whatever, boom, out that over their head, and it gets frustrating to them. So my one advice to small businesses, whether you're under a certain, you have some sort of compliance requirement or whatever it may be, or wherever you at in your cybersecurity hygiene, take it one step at a time, because each step is going to improve your cybersecurity hygiene. I know myself, I don't expect my clients, and I don't think any of you expect businesses to be, the national security agency of small businesses, but rather they're targeted because they don't have the resources, because they're the low-hanging fruit. All we want them to do is get to that middle of that tree so that they aren't that low-hanging fruit and easy targets anymore.
And before I forget, if you have questions and you're watching this webinar, please put those questions in the chat, and we'll get to those as well throughout the rest of this. And you'll be getting, this will be an on-demand following the summit. Paul, I can't move on without talking a little bit about the SBA resource partners, boots on the ground, helping businesses as well. Many of you partner with SBA, SBDC, or are an SBDC, work with one. SBDCs and SCORES and Women's Business Centers, Veteran Business Outreach Centers are all resource partners of the SBA and are always tasked with providing the latest and greatest support. Paul, SBDC, and Troy, you can jump in on this one as well, has a program called North Star. Does that program as well have some great videos and resources on the website that they can go to? And not only the website, but I think businesses can go to an SBDC or a SCORE or Women's Business Center, for example, and get that one-on-one support, correct?
Yes, I mean, we're operating the SBA-funded cybersecurity pilot program. That's what I'm running here, but every SBDC now is tasked with having cybersecurity expertise with that North Star certification, at least a certain percentage of the staff, I believe. But in our organization, we do have one of our business advisors is a certified ethical hacker and cybersecurity expert, and I think that's happening in a lot of the other SBDCs across the nation as well. So contacting your local SBDC is a great first step to getting cybersecurity assistance.
Yeah, very good. Talking to someone is incredibly important. Just reach out if you don't know. I just want to say that it's okay to ask a stupid question when it comes to cyber because the answer probably changed from yesterday to today. So it's always important to ask the question to anyone you can reach out to. And again, all of these programs that you see here today, or your SBDC or your SCORE, your Women's Business Center, or your state, your local CISA office, they all have great information to provide you whenever you start this journey of being cyber ready. So as we close out today, I know there's so much more we could talk about, but I do want to end with this last question, which is always the last question, right? If you would give 3 points of advice as actionable items as a small business that you should do today, what would those be? And we may have some overlap because we're going to go around the room here really quick. So Troy, you're my top right, so I get to start with you. What would be those 3 actionable items as we close out today?
Perfect. So again, appreciate you having me here. And so the first thing is, we have a bunch of different cybersecurity tools, whether it be software or hardware or whatever it may be, to protect us, to monitor, make sure everything's going right. But unfortunately, we still have these cyber attacks. And unfortunately, with AI, as great as it is for small businesses and utilizing for marketing and that sort of thing, it's also going to increase the amount of attacks we're under. And unfortunately, the biggest vulnerability is still us behind the keyboards, you, me, everybody else. So the number one thing I'd suggest to businesses is to make sure you're continuously training your employees. Train them on, annual, when they first hired, they should get training on your policies and then annual training on your policies. But at least quarterly, if not more, provide them awareness training of what's going on in cybersecurity. What are the latest threats? What are the latest risks? What are the vulnerabilities that we're trying to overcome? And more importantly, instill that cybersecurity hygiene environment within your business. Make sure they understand why it's important. Hey, if we suffer a ransomware attack tonight, you may not have a job next week. You may not have your next paycheck because we might be out of business, because it is that serious. Instill that culture.
Very good. Thank you. Ashley, any additional advice?
MFA. We've said it, but it's just one of those layers that is important. Keep everything updated. That's a free patch. It's free protection that you can have. The reason we have patches is because we know that there's a known vulnerability the bad actors can exploit. And so then the third I would say is assume that you're going to have a problem, you're going to have a compromise, and be prepared. So have your data backed up. Ensure that you can fail well and recover from that. Encrypt your data. So making sure that if someone does get access to your mission critical information, they can't read it. And so those would be the 3 that I would have.
Very good. Thank you so much, Doctor. Paul. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I'll go with the Cyber Readiness Institute, and you guys have already mentioned these. Get a password manager in place. Do not rely on Chrome or sticky notes on your desk. Learn how to identify phishing emails, and I think, Stu, you nailed it with the tips that you gave there. And to that point, earlier this year, there was a eye-popping statistic about the number of phishing attacks that were being successful through phones, because you can't read those URLs as easily on your tiny little phone. So don't ever click a link. Take Stu's advice. Go look at it on your desktop or your laptop. And the third thing is software updates never come at a good time, but accept them when they come or schedule them for later, but do not bypass them. And the fourth one, I'll add one more, and we haven't really talked about this much, but secure data backups. The days of plugging your big USB drive into your machine at the end of the day and then setting that drive over on the desk over here, that is not securing your data. So we're really urging our clients to move to cloud-based data storage with redundancies. So.
Can I have my password of my server written on my server as I walk into the office?
Please,
Paul, because
please. That'll make it easier
that.
for
No
me to get in.
Post-it notes.
Exactly.
Don't put a sign with all
It's
your
just written on
passwords.
in like a label maker label on it. So, not a Post-it note. I'm kidding. For me, I agree with everyone. My final thought is, I know you're busy, and I know some of the small businesses I work with are just barely hanging on, and I understand that, but just take that breath and reach out. There are so many resources in your community, from the smallest rural community to the largest city. There are resources available to you. I mean, I might not be able to come onto your site because you're 2 hours away, but I can Zoom with you. I can Teams with you. I can do whatever with you. I can help you train. I love Troy's stuff. But if you're not an expert in how to train on cybersecurity, there are plenty of resources out there. People like us at the universities that will Zoom with you and do a small training session for you. We live to do this stuff. We live to help you. So please reach out. And one more thing on what Troy said, the age-old question: how do you eat an elephant, Troy?
A little bit at a time.
One bite at a time, right? And that's exactly what you have to do in the cyber world. Look at that one thing in front of you, take care of it, and then think about the next thing in front of you, the next thing in front of you, that one bite at a time. There's a quote I saw today that said, if you want to get there fast, walk alone. If you want to go a far distance, walk with someone else, because we're here to help you.
What a perfect way to close out today's session. I want to thank all of you for being here today and sharing your expertise and your experiences working and getting that information out today. I want to remind everyone, cybersecurity is not scary. If I can understand it, so can you. There are a lot of resources on the ground. Don't walk alone, as Stu mentioned. Reach out for help. Continue to join us on the Cybersecurity Summit. Visit the SBA resources at sba.gov, and no question is a bad question. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Welcome, everybody. Again, we appreciate you so much for dialing into the SBA Cyber Summit. We've had a lot of great sessions talking about the technical aspects that small business owners should be aware of course, our policies and emerging trends here. Now I have the pleasure of introducing a new friend who's taking some time out of his busy schedule to talk to us a little bit about his observations in the world of startups, technology, venture capital, and a number of other hats he wears. But with no further ado, let me introduce Chris Sacca, noted venture capitalist, former coder and startup guy that you may recognize from Shark Tank on television. Chris covers a lot of ground in the world of startup and technology and has really been a godsend in terms of sharing some of his expertise on a number of SBA topics. So we drew him into the SBA Cyber Summit today. Chris, I know you're just coming off the road, buddy. I think in your global travels, you're just coming back from Japan, if I'm correct. And if so, how was the trip?
The trip was great, and it's great to be here, and it's great to be back in the trenches of small business people. I mean, that's the world I grew up in. That's what I know. That's where I feel most comfortable. Japan's fantastic. I think we're seeing a resurgence of the entrepreneurial effort and community there. And then on the personal side, it's not a place you go if you want to lose any weight. That is a nonstop buffet of amazing culinary opportunities there. So, but good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great, duly noted. Chris, we call these segments when we get a sort of a leader and experienced guy like you, sort of 10 questions with, hence 10 questions with Chris Sacca. We're not going to count, but we're going to manage our time well. So I think we're going to hit the 10 question mark. Let me start off tough. Okay, I got a quiz question for you. Chris, okay. There's a noted Sports Center newscaster called Chris Berman. Finish a sentence for me. Nobody circles the wagons like.
Oh, the Buffalo Bills. And I think if anyone there can see, that's a Josh Allen helmet right there in the background. I grew up in Buffalo. I was actually just back there a little bit ago and brought the kids, my wife and I brought the kids back for some sweet sauce pizza, some wings, and some beef on wet. And so you can take the kid away from Buffalo, but you can never take the kid out of Buffalo.
All right. Hey, full disclosure, both Chris and I are from Buffalo, New York. I think, Chris, we need to put Japan as the number 2 most tempting area to go to put on some calories and enjoy some good food. Buffalo and Western New York, you just rattled off some things that have my mouth watering. So I look forward to getting back home. I still call it home. You may also during the holidays. But Chris, the last time you and I saw each other, and I want to talk about a different home right now, was in Montana. So as I understand it, that's now home to you, probably because I know you're an avid skier. But besides, I want you to brag a little bit about Montana. I was amazed, and please add this as well, about the startup scene there. Maybe it was new to me. I had not been in Montana about a decade, but can you tell me, sort of, you're based out of Montana, and you've been active with Montana Festival and some of the startup scene there. So if you could elaborate a bit more, I think people would love to hear what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, look, I mean, my wife and I have lived in the mountains since we got together. And I think what you find about mountain communities is they're still real communities. You know your neighbors, you build those trusting relationships. Even if you don't vote the same, you realize you're in this together, and that at the root of a community is all the same stuff you need to build a startup or a small business. Is that mutual trust? Is to know that a handshake matters. Here in Bozeman, Montana, you go outside the kids' schools, you'll find 150 bikes without a lock on them, and that's because this community is a real community that trusts and respects each other, and so. Those are the ripe conditions for attracting the kind of people who are ready to roll up their sleeves and help each other. And at the base of a startup, at the base of a small business, is that willingness to just be helpful. And so I think that's why you're starting to see a startup ecosystem thrive across the Rockies, is that this is the kind of place where nobody lives here by accident. People choose to live here. And when they choose to live here, they're kind of signing up to, hey, we're all in this together.
Chris, thanks for that. Chris, I'm not sure if you got a chance to check out some of the startup scene in Buffalo when you were last there. A lot of things you just described reminds me of Buffalo, right? People knowing each other, handshake basis, building those relationships and that trust. And I would add sort of a significant element of scrappiness. People that know how to be entrepreneurial, connecting dots, relationships, partnerships, the product market fit. And also being dogged about pursuing one's passion, because we know the road to entrepreneurship through entrepreneurship and success is never perfect or smooth. There needs to be an element of scrappiness. So that's good to hear. And I saw some of those elements there in Bozeman. Let me back up though. You and I joked a little bit.
Go ahead. I would say both of those are communities that are easy to underestimate. And that's like one of the most beautiful things as an entrepreneur is when people underestimate you. It's just so much fun and so rewarding to exceed and blow through their expectations. And, growing up in Buffalo, you're the butt of every joke. You just grew up with that. You have no basis for any ego. But when you blast through that box that that the rest of the world has put you in, it's fantastic. And so when you really look at a place like Buffalo, New York, and you see the talent and you see that drive and you see that grit that comes from being underestimated at every point, you can't beat that.
Oh, agreed. Big shout out to our Buffalo district office, Buff State, our other partners there, and the SBA ecosystem and all the lending community there that supports small businesses. Chris, I was going to say, you and I jumped sort of into the informal. Let me back up for a minute. So folks that don't know about your particular background, you've been in sort of a diverse career in technology and investment. Can you talk a little bit about that background and any pivotal moments that really sort of shown to you that that's the area you want to be in the nexus with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that I was always a rabble rouser as a kid. Again, that same thing of being underestimated and being boxed in. Starting way back in junior high, I started attending the University of Buffalo for math at night and was grabbing any kind of opportunity I could on the academic side. But at the same time, our parents raised us to have hardcore blue collar jobs, like not just during the summer, but throughout the year. And so I worked in construction, I worked in equipment rental, I worked front of house, back of house. I had just been exposed to so many different types of businesses that by the time I eventually made my way in, through academia and out into the career world, I found that I was actually equipped with something much more powerful than the kids from Harvard had, which is I had seen how real businesses work, those kinds of businesses that, it seems quaint now, but need to actually be profitable, don't have an endless runway of venture capital, that thing that needs to have more money come in that goes out. And so what I found was that I could go get involved with this next generation of companies. And no one was asking me, hey kid, how old are you? Or prove to us you can do something. They were just like, wait, you're available to help? Come on in. You got a great idea, and ideas are cheap, but you're willing to help us execute on that? Let's go. And so I was really drawn to the entrepreneurship and startup community because that's where I could be most helpful. And what I found I drew upon most was the lessons from the businesses I had been exposed to thanks to the way I was raised. And to this day, I still, and it's something I frankly worry about with a lot of the folks we see come out of academia and come work for us, is brilliant book smarts, but they've never really been in a negotiation. A lot of young people we have that we work with don't even know when they're being lied to. They've never been swindled. They've never had anyone take advantage of them because their parents protected them the whole time. And so I feel very grateful for the way I was raised and the exposure I got to those small businesses as a kid.
Thanks, Chris. That has me thinking both what I see on Shark Tank and I know you've been heavy in the world of investment. Chris, how would you respond if somebody was to say, well, all startups are either technology by nature because they're a pure tech play or they're powered by technology, right? You just talked about learning the basics, learning the sort of fundamentals. But there does seem to be a perception at time, and I'm not sure if you see this both in your public role on television, but then also as you advise and contribute in startup ecosystems, the role of technology with startups. Is it part and parcel? Is it just a layer on top of it if it's not a tech startup? How do you talk to people about that particular issue?
Well, look, every startup starts with solving a problem. So you've identified a problem and you think you have a better way of solving that problem now. And so at the heart of that is, as an entrepreneur, you're looking for every tool that can help you solve that problem faster, better, cheaper, and easier, in a longer lasting way. And so in doing so, you need to have the most open mind about anything that can help you along that way. Now, that doesn't mean that every startup is a tech startup at heart, but there are a ton of tech tools that can help you accelerate the business and take care of a lot of tasks around the fringe that help you as the entrepreneur focus on the core of what you do and that core solution to your problem. And so, I remember back, I went to a school where they required you to study, take a couple classes in theology and religion. And a lot of people there were from different religions or didn't believe in God at all. And their motto was freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. They're like, look, religion is such a big component of everyday life that it's worth all of us studying it, understanding other faiths, understanding the common thread of the golden rule that runs through all of them. I feel the same way about technology. You can make your own technology choices in your business, but you ignore technology at your peril. It is just nearly impossible to run a startup now if you have your head in the sand about what kind of technology is out there, what's coming, and how it's going to impact your space.
Chris, would you continue that response if I asked you the same issue with artificial intelligence? Is it the sort of same response? Obviously, it's dominating the press. Every startup I run across is talking about it. I just came from a policy event here, and artificial intelligence dominated the discussion. How do you respond with AI being so heavy into the conversation nowadays?
Yeah, AI is the single most transformational economic wave of our lifetimes and probably of the last couple of generations. And I say that I'm not an investor in AI, so I am unbiased on this subject. But I will tell you that if you are not paying attention to AI and experimenting with it and trying it right now, it is very likely to wipe out your job or your organization. It is crazy the impact it's already having. Already, our team and our business is smaller this year than it was last year as a result of AI. There's so many tasks, particularly in the white collar jobs, that are just done better than AI. And it's crazy, but you think of how many people took out all the money to go to school, played by the social contract, stayed up late doing their homework, took out student loans, went to grad school, and their life's work is now done better by a computer. It's sad, but it's real. And I don't have a great recipe for adjusting to it yet, but every day I'm finding new uses for it in our business. And there's no doubt it is accelerating research across drug discovery and healthcare and energy and all of these spaces. The promise of AI is incredible, but at the same time, its disruptive power, particularly in those white collar jobs, is bonkers. And so I wish I had the answer. I just think right now, everybody has to keep a very close eye on it. This is not a hype cycle. This is not some Web3 crypto NFT garbage. This is the real deal. And if you're not paying attention to AI, it's going to sneak up on you very fast.
Got it. Chris, I've just got you for a couple more questions here, but still along that vein, as small businesses are exploring, piloting, testing, or adapting to new technology, we're coming out of a period where so many small businesses, their clients, the workforce was dealing with sort of remote environments. So people got used to sort of new norms. Do you see that technology, AI, and we're at a cyber summit too, some of these, risks on the other side? How do you see that sort of playing, either personally or what you're hearing with the audiences that you interact with? Again, how technology is powering us into a new day and age, or how does that impact it all? Because we experience life a bit differently over the past few years than people expected to walk down the street and pick up product, walk back, or walk to the next store and pick up the next product. What's been your observations?
Yeah, I worry. I mean, look, there was something very cool about that time when we were all working from home, because it was great to practice guitar or get outside or, spend more time with your family, et cetera. But I think in our heart, we all felt a real sense of loss of that camaraderie and collaboration that comes with colleagues when you're building something together. And I don't think it can be completely substituted for over Zoom. We are a work from work company. And because we find that so much of the mentorship and the education that happens in a company happens accidentally. It happens coincidentally. It happens in the hallway. It happens overhearing a phone call or sitting on a meeting and taking the notes, or just watching somebody else do their job. And so it's those collisions within the workplace that really accelerate the junior employees. We were distributed over COVID like so many other people. And then we decided to really consolidate the employees. And when we said to our junior folks who were distributed, pick an office, no one said no. All of them realized they would have better opportunities for mentorship if they moved to those places too. And I think that's at the heart of what humans actually want, is that we do appreciate that flexibility and that lifestyle of being distributed, but we cannot ignore what comes from that time together. And so I think one of the biggest risks to our startups right now and to our small businesses is not actually having that time in person where we build those stronger bonds, where we have that clearer communication, where we know and develop, and particularly for younger people who are addicted to their devices, where we develop that real sense of those nonverbal cues and that emotional intelligence that informs so much of what we do, particularly if we're going to be competing for our own jobs against artificial intelligence. But along the way, too, in terms of actual cybersecurity, I think that's the biggest risk. Every time we're distributed and we've inserted a digital gap between the two of us is another opportunity for a vulnerability for our organizations to be penetrated. And so if you and I are in the same hallway or in the same office, it's easy for one of us to walk over to the other and say, hey, did you really want me to approve this wire? Or is this really going out? When we're distributed, God knows. And I think, the biggest risk, we can install all the greatest technology, but the biggest risk right now is clicking on the wrong attachment because it's got your colleague's name on it and giving them the benefit of the doubt, or answering the wrong instant message. And a lot of that stuff is mitigated. I mean, the humans are the weakest link in cybersecurity, right? And so a lot of that gets mitigated if we get back to making sure we're collaborating together in real time. And particularly maybe, if we are really fans of this remote model, making sure that we really introduce those hybrid interactions, that opportunity to really spend time side by side. I just think it's better for businesses, it's safer for businesses, and it's just better for humans. We just want to be closer to the people we work with.
Chris, you packed a lot in there, and we had sessions earlier, and we're going to follow this session with a few more with a lot of our experts that are in partnership with SBA at our universities, our business mentors, and others that are sort of using examples that you just cited about how to navigate through this current sort of digital age, how to strengthen their cyber hygiene, tricks of the trade, other things while you're on the road, both domestically and globally. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Chris, just a couple more questions here before we let you go. If you mentioned mentorship a couple times, very important to the SBA and all of our partners. If I were to do a sizzle reel of you on Shark Tank, right, and it highlighted some of the feedback you give those startups, what is Chris known as sort of top three business advice elements that you seem very important, but you find yourself repeating them often because they are so important and probably insightful from the things you see people need to do more of, or compensate because you're seeing gaps out there. What is Chris known when he's sitting down with you across the table giving you business mentorship?
Well, first of all, I agreed to go on the show for a couple of reasons. One, mostly to mix it up and call BS on my friend Mark Cuban. So believe it or not, we are actually very close friends, but no one was ever calling him out. So I wanted to go there and stir it up a little bit. But that said, it's also one of the very top shows that parents watch with their kids. And I think America has its bumps and bruises. We have some moments in our history that we aren't particularly proud of. But one of the things that has me hold my head high as an American is that I do think we are the greatest economy and the greatest opportunity for social and economic mobility in the world. We have the best setting for entrepreneurship and small business anywhere in the world. And it made me really proud to be a part of that show where we saw real mom and pop entrepreneurs with ideas taking risk and starting businesses. And it feels like one of the most patriotic things that's ever been on television. By the way, they never told us what to say. It wasn't scripted. We were investing our own money. It's probably one of the most authentic shows on television too. And so I think at the heart of that leads into working with any entrepreneur. It is just to be particularly authentic. Humans can smell when you're not being yourself, and it never feels good to anybody. Not when you're choosing a friend, not when you're choosing a partner, or not when you're choosing someone to invest in, or when you're choosing an investor. And so, I often say to entrepreneurs, number one, interview your investors the same way that you would interview an entrepreneur or a hire at your company. And so go to them, and it's not a charitable act that they're giving you money. Instead, you're giving them the opportunity to buy stock in your company. And so ask them in a way, what are you doing to earn this? How are you going to make my company more valuable as a result of being involved? We do the same exact thing. So I'd say that's number one. Number two, we do the same exact thing with making hires. And so when someone is coming to work at your company, you as the owner of the company, whether you're giving them stock in the company or just paying them a salary, there is real cost to that. If you're giving them stock, there's a piece of the stock of the overall ownership that you're giving them. So at the end of the day, you're going to have less ownership for yourself if you're giving them a piece. And what you're actually asking yourself is, by consequence, by a result of giving them some shares in the company, are my remaining shares going to be worth more? Meaning, is this person going to have such an impact that the stock I keep is going to be worth more as a result of having them here? If the answer isn't hell yes, then it's a hell no. Similarly, it's the same for someone making salary, et cetera, because it's not just the cost of the money that you're paying them, but it's the cost of the time and distraction and the overhead that goes to managing a team. And so each time you bring somebody on, you're asking, is the money we're paying them and the time we're investing in them and the development and the growth we want to see and everything that goes into that, are we going to see more ROI back to the company, yes or no? And again, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And I think we lose track of that. People go online and they see charts of like, well, this is how much we're supposed to give an employee like this. This is what Glassdoor told us, et cetera. But each of your businesses is unique, and you need to do that analysis for yourself. And you need to always just get back down to those fundamental principles. And so, and the third thing I would say is there are all kinds of blog posts and TikTok stars and influencers who have all of this kind of business advice. And it's great to hear some of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you really have to be able to follow your gut. Because if you are an entrepreneur and a small business owner, this is not something you're just doing for the next 24 months. This is a true commitment, a true life commitment. And you need to believe in everything you're doing such that you're willing to make that sacrifice. Founders are not normal people. If you left a secure job to start a business, you are weird. It will not succeed if you're a normal person. Normal people don't take that kind of risk. Normal people don't make those kinds of sacrifices. And so we will only invest in weird founders, honestly. And so if you find yourself like taking too much advice from the internet, stop and check. You know, one of the reasons why I left Shark Tank was that, you know, unlike if I were to go on The Bachelor and agree to get married on that show and you get divorced like 6 weeks later, no one would blink at that. But at Shark Tank, if I do a deal with a startup, I'm making a 12 to 15 year commitment to a company, because that's how long it usually takes to see a good startup through to some form of maturity where they don't need my help on a regular basis anymore. That's a really long commitment. And that's the same commitment each of you is making when you start a company. And done right, maybe you're building something that's generational. You even want to share with the next generation of your family. And so it's great to hear advice from other people, but you really have to deeply believe in your own gut if you're willing to make the sacrifice that it's going to entail.
Chris, awesome advice. I'm going to ask you one last question. And while nobody can predict the future, I'm going to ask you to pull out your crystal ball, right? Because you do observe a lot of trends. So I'm going to predict the future for you, Chris, while you're thinking about what you see over the next 5 years related to small businesses, technology. You've hinted and referenced this a lot during our talk. One thing I'm going to predict, Chris, is that the Buffalo Bills are going to finish the season very strong and have a heck of a playoff run. So I've stole that one from you. But tell us what you think is coming around the corner for small businesses over the next few years as we wrap up our talk today.
Yeah, I have to go back to AI. I do not think this is a hype cycle with AI. It is absolutely wildly disrupting everything. And what I would say is anytime you hear somebody naysaying AI, well, AI can't do this, just add the word yet to the end of that sentence. And so I promise you that the rate of acceleration and the improvement of these things is a curve that looks near vertical, right? So instead of being kind of a slow, steady curve, this is a curve that is bending up. And if you were standing on it, your nose would be touching it right now. And so AI just a couple years ago wasn't capable of solving some of our basic business tasks. Now it is doing a ton of our legal work, a ton of our financial analysis, a lot of our writing right now. And so it's just incredible how much it's doing. And it's starting to get funnier and more creative and all these things that we thought were uniquely human. It's pretty damn good. Why? Because it's basically eaten everything that we've written and all the video we've made. I mean, if you haven't played with the Google's tool called Notebook LM, where you upload any document, push a button, and suddenly there's a man and a woman doing a podcast about whatever you just uploaded, it's absolutely bonkers. And so do not underestimate what AI can do and what impact it will have on your business. I swear it'll sneak up on you. And this isn't 20 years. This isn't horse and buggy versus the automobile. This is single-digit years happening right now.
Chris, excellent wrap-up advice. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Chris, I appreciate your time fresh off your trip. I hope you have some good skiing ahead of you. Chris Sacca of Lower Carbon Capital, thank you so much for joining us during the SBA Cyber Summit. We've got a few more segments to go. But again, Chris, our deep appreciation, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Good luck.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm SBA Administrator Isabel Casillas Guzman, and welcome to our second week of the SBA's third annual Cybersecurity Summit. This is an award-winning summit. I am so thankful and proud of all of our partners who have joined us to provide excellent content for our small business owners. And I have another exciting conversation that I wanted to have you join in with me on. And we've been speaking with experts in the cybersecurity space, and one in particular that I wanted to have a chance to talk to is in the global digital space, an incredible Virginia-based small business that I've met along my travels in Africa, actually, who has been able to go global in cyber, in digital technologies to really connect the world better. And I want to start with introductions because Dr. Wandji, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us. You are an exciting entrepreneur who's been able to grow your business. And I want you to tell a little bit more about your journey to getting into technology and getting into the cyberspace as well, and a little bit about your company and what you do.
Thank you so much, Madam Administrator, and thank you for the opportunity. And thank you to all of you listening, because I think I have a very good but also unique story to tell. So basically, I would like to start with my background. I was born and I grew up in Africa, and I left Africa when I was 17 to come to the United States to do my undergrad and graduate studies. And upon graduation, I had a chance to work for the U.S. Navy and the Department of Defense, where I spent almost 20 years, and I retired as a technical director for cybersecurity. And I had a chance to work on the most critical, but yes, most challenging environment. And I think that helped me understand how we can do so much with, with the life of the soldier, but more importantly, the critical infrastructure of our country, the United States. And always wanted to give back to the country where I was born, to the continent when I was born, especially as they were embracing the digital economy. Because as you know, digital economy is tied to cybersecurity. When you are dematerializing the information, you need to protect it. It's not like the physical security. It's a little bit more challenging because you need to take a lot of things in consideration. So my African roots plus what I've learned here in the United States combined together gave me that unique opportunity to understand what the people were dealing with in Africa. And that's how I was able to rapidly connect with the most critical infrastructure in many countries in Africa. And my global focus, because living in the United States gave me that opportunity to bring tailor, customized solution to the need that they have.
That's incredible. And I know your vantage point as president and CEO of Cybastion Tech has really allowed you to understand what's happening on a global space. And I'm always encouraging our small businesses to dive into international trade. Firms that trade have ability to create good jobs. Firms that trade can have more resilience in their revenues by distributing, diversifying their revenue sources. And so I know that we can leverage our great diaspora, folks like you who have experience, connection, knowledge to other countries. And so I'm always trying to encourage people to go global like you have done with Cybastion Tech. But why don't we first start with, what are some of the things you're seeing from a global perspective around digitization and cybersecurity that you want to share with this audience?
From a global perspective, I see three things in cybersecurity. First of all is the convergence of cybersecurity and digitalization. Back in the early 2000s, we were talking just about digitalization without really taking into account cybersecurity, because you didn't have that interconnectivity that we have now, because the speed of the internet was slow and people were just getting to know how to use and put those things together. Now with the Internet of Things, now with the 5G, now with the speed of the connectivity, you have that global challenges where you are putting all those things together and you can't separate those two things anymore. Cybersecurity needs digitalization. They has to be done together if you don't want to create any type of chaos. So from a global point of view, we see the emergence of a lot of threat. Why do you have those threats? Because back in the days, again, they were working in silos. Like when you had your network, it was not interconnected to something else. So your biggest threat were the people around you who were clueless for the most part. But now you have, very skilled people from the other side of the world that can attack your system, and that interconnectivity bring the emergence of those threats, and also the digital sovereignty, making sure that you can protect your data. Where are your data? Can you have, a very good secure system for those data? And that's why in Africa, again, talking about it, we have so much opportunities, not challenges, but opportunities for small to medium size, because 85% of the data are outside of the continent. A lot of things that the continent is doing in digitalization is relying on either the Western or the Middle East. And when you think about it from a business point of view, they are going to move toward where the Western countries are now. So we have a lot of small to medium-sized companies in the United States, extremely skilled, extremely powerful. They already mature and all this technology here. If they come and work in Africa, they can have the greatest, exponential growth that they haven't seen here in the US, because here we already developed. The digitalization is not a big thing. I mean, it's almost saturated. Whereas when you go there, the Chinese are there, but they're not as good as we are. And the fact that we have a diaspora here, but not only the diaspora, the United States in the global world is well respected, and we can make a very good impact. And I think my advice for small to medium-sized company is go there under a company like ours or other companies that are there, work as a sub, so you don't have to spend for business development, you don't have to spend for all those things, and you can just execute. I do have contract, and I'm looking for companies here here in the United States to work with me, so we can tackle all these different challenges or opportunities, I would like to say, that we have in Africa.
Well, and that's incredible. I love that data point, because I always say that 95% of the world's consumers are outside of the United States. And you're just saying now 85% of the data is outside of the United States. So if you can imagine the huge opportunity to really think of your company as a global one and go after that marketplace. If you're a cyber firm or a digital technology firm, or just a company wanting to do business as well, it's a whole nother area we could talk about. Well, and this is where I loved featuring Cybastion Tech and really talking about this issue, because we have critical partnerships around the world that are important to our national security, important to our democracy, and thus important to our economy. And so having firms share their expertise with our strategic partners in Africa is really important, and being able to build revenues. And so you have incredible contracts in Western Africa and expanding abroad, working for the governments of these nations to strengthen their digital infrastructure and technology. So it's huge opportunities for SMEs to go global and really support this strengthening digitization. What would be your advice from a practical perspective? And this could be even in the cyberspace. I know you have immense expertise as a cyber leader, period. But in addition to this expertise as someone who knows global trade and who's diving into going after markets abroad, what would be your key bits of advice for our small businesses listening in terms of what they should prioritize as they're thinking of going global and protecting themselves from cyber, either or?
Yes, definitely. So for the small to medium-sized company, the first thing that I would like to highlight is the amount of resources that they have with the SBA. I've been and I never worked with SBA before, but when I had a chance to see you administrator in Cote d'Ivoire and connecting with your team, a lot of things like working capital, a lot of help that you are providing that most of the countries out there are not providing. Business abroad don't have the support that we do. And I think it's one of the best kept secret, where usually we don't think that when we go globally, we will have the help of our government. I didn't until I met you in Africa. So this is very important, because when you go globally, it takes a little bit of time to recover from your investment, and the working capital and the resources that you have allow you to do that. But yet, when you go globally, you are able to expand on your know-how. So you already know how to do things here in the United States. And believe me, out there, people are behind us, especially in South America, Africa, even in Europe. you will be surprised. Even in Europe, I had customers calling me from France, from Belgium, because they had issues, very simple issues that we in the United States don't have or don't consider as an issue anymore. Yes, you do have a lot of Middle East, whatever, but you have very few US companies. And when you come with the US brand, because of our reputation, because of our ethics, because of how we work, people trust us naturally. And wherever I went, they were always like, where is the United States? Where are you guys? We were waiting for you. The reason why we work with any other country is because we don't see you. When you come, you are competitive, you working hard, and I will encourage you to go out and look at what is out there.
Well, that's wonderful. And that's my experience when I've traveled abroad to advance our relationships with countries, to advance trade and small business, is that it's very welcoming for our small businesses. We do have a strong reputation that you carry with you from the United States. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing this time with me. And I know that it'll benefit not only those cyber companies or those digital companies that are looking to expand in markets abroad, but for small businesses to be aware and think outside the box in terms of opportunities to connect with other countries. Because as you help make these countries more digital, Dr. Wandji, that means that their small businesses can better connect with ours. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Arthur Plews, and I serve as the Chief of Staff at the U.S. Small Business Administration. Today, I have the pleasure of serving as a moderator for a panel featuring 3 of the leaders of our different offices within our agency. Each of them are going to be sharing information based on both what their programs do and the services they deliver for small businesses in general, and specifically on topics related to the theme of our 2024 Summit, Cybersecurity. To begin, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and their office. We'll begin with Aditi Dussault of the Office of Entrepreneurial Development.
Thank you, Arthur, and I'm so glad to be here today, one of several sessions. And I, as Arthur mentioned, am the Associate Administrator for SBA's Office of Entrepreneurial Development. We are an office that serves the entire country in conjunction with our Office of Field Operations. They have our district offices, and my office supports the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers, and to an extent, the Veterans Business Opportunity Centers and our SCORE partners across the country. These are all great free resources for you to access different kinds of counseling services and technical assistance to help your business get started, grow. And we also do things like the Cybersecurity Summit. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'll turn it over to Jackie.
Thanks, Aditi and Arthur. I'm so excited to be here and speaking today. I am the Associate Administrator of the Office of Government Contracting and Business Development. And the federal government is the largest buyer on the globe. And my office ensures that 23% of the $600 billion spent every year is given to small businesses. Last year, the federal government spent over $170 billion a year with small businesses, buying everything you can possibly imagine. My team sits as inside of contracting offices. We have procurement center representatives that ensures that the government sets aside every opportunity for contracts where we can find that the rule of 2 applies, 2 or more small businesses being capable of doing the work. In addition, we write all the rules and regulations. We do the NAICS standards. We lead the Mentor Protege program. And most exciting, which we have a whole bunch of news coming out, we handle all the certification programs. So I'm excited. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about what we do. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Katie.
Hello, everyone. Wonderful to be with you. My name is Katie Frost, and I serve as the Associate Administrator for the Office of Capital Access at SBA. So I oversee the agency's loan programs. We do about $40 billion every year in small business loans. That's in partnership with private sector lenders all over the country through our 7A, our 504, and our microloan program. I also oversee our direct disaster loan program, where we help communities, and I mean small businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. So we help entire communities recover from disasters through low interest direct loans that we provide in those communities. And then also I oversee our pandemic programs. So I'm sure many of you have heard of the Paycheck Protection Program or the COVID EIDL program. That also came out of my office. And lastly, we have a surety bond program that helps provide surety bond for small businesses around the country. So really excited to chat about capital access and how to make that strong and cyber strong throughout the country today.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Aditi. I hope those introductions were useful to everyone watching this. Obviously, today we're going to be focused mostly on cybersecurity, but we want you to come back and see us for all the services we offer in the future as well. Now I'm going to move us over into some cyber-specific discussion. And Aditi, I'd like to start with you. Your office coordinates our Cybersecurity Summit. Could you tell us a little bit about why this summit's important and what other work your office is doing to provide support in the cybersecurity space?
Yes, thank you, Arthur. So obviously this Cybersecurity Summit is something that I'm excited about. We had some programming last week. We're here again today. And it's really about making sure that small businesses are ready for everything that they're going to face. And in this increasingly plugged in world, these cybersecurity threats are real, they're present, they're dangerous, they're costly, but they're also something you can meet. It's something you can manage. It's something that you can, with a little bit of planning, it becomes part of your routine, and it kind of takes the teeth out of it. You can be prepared and you can overcome these types of challenges. So we want to make sure that programming like this is provided to you and is accessible to you so that you can ensure that your business is protected and in the best posture. So that's why we do this summit every year as part of October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. But we also do a few other things that are pretty important for supporting small businesses in becoming more cyber resilient. And one of those programs is we provide some grants to states and their partners. It's not all states. We've done about 12 different states over the past 3 years to help promote the development of good cybersecurity training and materials, just to help improve the small business awareness of different topics and different ways that you can make your company better insulated from these threats. And we've done this on a pilot basis, and these states are working to create things like modules about what is ransomware and how do I prepare myself to protect myself from ransomware threats. What kind of checklists can I use to make sure that I've done my monthly cybersecurity updates and things like that? What are the actual tools and resources that are available to me as a small business owner? And that's something that my office supports. And as these grantees are developing these materials, we're learning from them and hoping to distribute them across the country as that program grows. So that's one of our projects. And another project, brand new, that I'm very excited about, we just awarded this grant over the summer to the University of Delaware. And the University of Delaware houses our Small Business Development Center, our lead center in the state of Delaware. And they have been on the cutting edge of cybersecurity awareness and training, especially for small businesses, for quite some time. And I'm pleased that we were able to give this additional award to them so that they can take this training program that they've had and expand it and provide it to the counselors across the entirety of the SBA Resource Partner Network. And so they are going to be working over the next year to implement this nationwide certification for the counselors that you might encounter at our small business development centers, our women's business centers, SCORE counselors. This training and certification will be available to all of those counselors so that you know that when you're going to any of the services that SBA provides, that you can have access to people who are getting this top-notch training, who know the latest and the greatest in terms of what these threats are, and can help point you to take that next step. Because you come to these summits and you hear hundreds of different things you could do, and sometimes you need to know, well, what should I do right now? Getting to know these counselors who have this background can understand exactly where you are and say, okay, well, given where you are today, this is probably the next move for you. And we're so excited to be able to take this program national. So those are just some of our current activities on cybersecurity, and we hope you check them all out.
Thanks very much, Aditi. And I heard you mention a couple of SBA what we call resource partners, small business development centers, for instance. Could I ask you to explain to the group a little bit more just about what those are in case someone's hearing those terms for the first time? And is that something people have to pay for? Or is that something that they can access for free?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Arthur. It's a good one. So we have such a great kind of nationwide footprint for the resources that SBA has. Of course, we have our district offices. Those are directly part of the great agency that is the SBA. We have 68 district offices across the country in pretty much every major locality where you might be. And it's definitely really, they're really helpful not only for kind of getting to know SBA, but also to get to know that local ecosystem. Our district offices play a critical role in navigating you to the right resources and the best places for you to be. And so I have to give a lot of credit to our field because they also know all these other resource partners that I'm about to mention, and they can help guide you with your specific need to the right organization. So as Arthur mentioned, we have our small business development centers. These are co-located with universities. Universities are key partners for our SBDCs. And these folks provide all sorts of trainings, technical assistance, which means the nuts and bolts of what your company needs, and just like real good educational opportunities for you to really take your business to the next level. So they offer classes online, they offer classes in person, and are a great local resource for you. These trainings are no cost, and they have really great partners within the community, again, to help you take further steps as you get to those critical junctures in your business. Similarly, we have women's business centers and veterans business opportunity centers that offer similar services, but are catered toward those different communities. And those are really important parts of the whole small business ecosystem. And there are a few different programs, and it's custom and a little different in every region in terms of like what exactly is my local WBC or my local VBOC going to do for me. The programming will be a little bit different from place to place, but that's again why you go to the district office to help you navigate to find the right one, the best fit for you. And then of course, last but not least, we have SCORE. So SCORE is a fantastic resource and really is about mentorship, which is a little bit different than technical assistance, a little bit different than a training. It's what do I do right now? And SCORE is a volunteer organization. They have over 10,000 counselors across the country. And they are former business owners, former business executives, many of whom are retired. That's kind of the origin of SCORE. But now they have people who are still working, who are still plugged in actively day to day in the business community, and they're there to provide you that like real customized, real supportive mentorship about how do you get through a particular situation. Recently, I've had a really good conversation with a business owner who actually is no longer a business owner because she worked with her SCORE counselor to figure out an exit strategy to permit her to sell her business. And her SCORE counselor had done that for his own business, had supported literally dozens of other businesses through that process, and was able to support her through that process too. And the best part was he was free. She could have paid exit counselors lots of money, lawyers, attorneys, those types of things. And of course, she did need them along the way. But the general strategy and the support that you can do this was provided for free from SCORE. So that's the basics of our local ecosystems. And it's a lot of what my office does.
Sure, Didi. And thank you also to anyone from our Resource Partner Network who might be watching this. We appreciate what you do. Jackie, my next two questions are for you. The first one is about federal contracting. You mentioned in your introduction what a big customer the federal government is, how much we buy. Could you talk a little bit about what kinds of opportunities might exist for small businesses in the cybersecurity industry in federal contracting?
Yes, very good question. First, I want to tell everyone that all of the cybersecurity and all other federal government opportunities are on the System for Award Management, sam.gov, sam.gov. I also want to tell you that it's important that you put that directly in your, you put sam.gov directly in the system when you're looking for that instead of just Googling sam.gov, because you could come up with a spoof site that's not the real sam.gov. But the opportunities are enormous. And what we do in our office is we work with the OSDBUs across the federal government, the 24 CFO, Chief Financial Office Act, OSDBUs, small business directors, and we assign goals every year, small business goals. And collectively, we work together to meet that 23% small business congressionally mandated goal. Each agency sets aside acquisitions for small businesses. and they post them on sam.gov when they're looking for small businesses that can do the work. And I pulled up 3 opportunities today. The different ways that you may find an opportunity is a solicitation, a request for proposal, which means the government has done all of their market research and they know that they want to set it aside for small businesses, or they want it to be unrestricted, meaning all types of small businesses, large and small, can compete. Another is a request for information, an RFI, and the government isn't sure even if industry can provide that service, and so they're asking industry questions. And the best for me, and with an RFI, that opportunity may never materialize into a contract opportunity, but the best opportunities to look for are sources sought synopsis. And that's when you have an opportunity to help the government shape how that acquisition is released, that it's released not just for small business, because if we find 2 or more veterans that can do the work, we'll set it aside for veterans. If we find 2 or more women that can do the work, we'll set it aside for women. And that's how we get to that rule of 2, finding 2 or more small businesses that we can set the work aside for. So right now, there are a bunch of cybersecurity opportunities, but I pulled 3, and they are hot on the market right now. So get your pens out. On sam.gov, the Army has a PEO C3T contract. That's the contracting command at Aberdeen Proving Ground. They are releasing a sources sought synopsis for a manager for tactical cyber and network operations. They're expecting that you will respond the first week of November, that you are capable of doing the work. And this, again, is that early opportunity. They have not released the solicitation, but for you to help the government set it aside. It's a multiple award IDIQ, which means they're going to award more than one contract. And those, let's say if they award 5 contracts, those 5 contractors for the next 5 years, a base and probably 4 option years, will be the only contractors that get task orders to perform tactical cyber and network operations at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Another one is DISA. DISA has released last week a cloud-based internet isolation service contract, CB2. That's my first time when I pulled this up. I'm like, oh, that's a new acronym. Cloud-based internet isolation, and it's to reduce the bandwidth and cybersecurity risk associated with internet browser for Department of Defense networks. And they're looking for a small business, and it's on sam.gov right now as a sources sought. So again, RFI is, we've already done our market research, submit your proposal. An RFP is, and an RFI, we're looking for information. This is sources sought. You have the opportunity to help this work be set aside for a small business. And then the last one, and the only reason I pulled 3 is because we're limited on time, but I could go on. And don't call me to ask me for the whole list. Get on sam.gov and pull it. Okay, the next one is another sources sought synopsis. The response date is November 4th. And they're looking for full content inspection cyber defense capability. Full content inspection, FCI, that was another acronym I didn't know about. Cyber defense capability. And it's to assist with operational tasks and the mission to operate, secure, and defend Defense Information System networks. DISN, Defense Information System Network. So those are just 3 of the different opportunities, and the government is looking for small businesses. I do want to say, sometimes when I go to an event or a conference, someone will say, I'm not going after the sources sought synopsis, because I'm sure by the time the government posts that on sam.gov, you already know who you want. And that is not true. The only people that benefit when you don't respond to a sources sought synopsis is large companies, because we need you to respond and tell us that there's 2 or more small businesses out there ready to bid on this work so we can set it aside. And if you don't, because a large business has convinced you it's too late, then it will go unrestricted and you'll be competing. You're capable, but now you're competing against a large business. So I don't want to keep taking up too much time, but those are 3 really hot on the market right now opportunities that you can go for.
Jackie, thank you. And thank you for contextualizing it so in such great detail for our panelists, or excuse me, for our listeners. And just remember, everyone, no matter when you're listening or watching this, there are still opportunities, like Jackie said, on SAM.gov. So please go check. Jackie, I told you you're getting 2 questions, so here comes the second one. It's a little different. This is about cybersecurity from a different angle. Are there any specific threats or other considerations that small businesses should be thinking about in federal contracting when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yes, good question, Arthur. No business is too small to be a target for cybercrime. Thousands of small businesses and medium-sized businesses are harmed by ransomware every year. And I think the criminals think it's easier to get into these small businesses and they don't have the sophisticated systems in place, so they're an easy target. Last year, over $2.5 billion cyber crimes cost small businesses $2.5 billion. That's a lot of money that could be used to grow and develop and scale your business, not fighting a threat. And so it's important that you get these systems in place. I urge all small businesses to look for the scams. I mentioned earlier that on sam.gov, if you don't put that in your browser, type it in your browser, it will come up with something else that's called Federal Contractor Registry, sam.com. It doesn't end with .gov. That means it's not our official site. And they will register you in sam.gov, which you can get registered for free, but they will charge you $2,500. And you could go directly to the site and register yourself. The other thing that's important is because of transparency, and this is something that, President Biden is pushing for transparency in federal government contracting. He wants to know where the dollars are going, but he also wants you as a small business to know where all the dollars are going. But the Federal Procurement Data System releases all the information about contract awards. So you can find out how many contracts are going to women, to small businesses, to veterans, to HubZone, and even in consideration of race, how many contracts are going to women. To Black and Brown companies, Asian American companies, Native American companies. But with the release of this information, in it being public, it also can be used the wrong way. So it's important when you get an email or a request for information, it could be something as simple as, hey, I am the finance office for the Defense Finance Accounting Office, and we know you got this contract. We're trying to work on your first payment, and your bank information is incorrect. Please update it on this link. And then you go on that link and update it, and you've given out wrong information. So just recognize that just because you're a small business doesn't mean you're not going to be attacked. It means you may more likely be attacked.
Very good flags, Jackie. Our next question is actually on the same theme, and Katie, it's coming over to you. Still on the same idea about threats that small businesses should be aware of. Are there any cybersecurity threats that are specific to the financial services industry where your lending programs operate that small businesses should be keeping in mind at this time?
So the short answer is yes. The longer answer here is anytime we're talking about money, there is going to be, or money, any money transaction online, applying for loans, looking for investments, exchanging money, there is a risk for a cyber attack or for some, I'll call it unsavory intervention, like the sort of scam that Jackie was talking about on the government contracting side. And as we're thinking about this with regard to when you're pursuing financing for your small business, so you're pursuing a loan or you're pursuing investment, there's kind of 2 key things I want you to keep in mind as you're moving forward. One is think really critically about your sources and who you're working with, right? How did you get in touch with this organization? Did they call you? Or did you call them, right? So if someone's cold calling you and offering you financial products, I would be inherently suspicious of that organization. Instead, if you need a loan, I encourage you to look at, for example, SBA's Lender Match platform. It's a fantastic platform where we work with about 1,000 lenders across the country. And what you do is you log on, you say the type of business you are and the type of financing you're seeking. And we're going to match you with vetted lenders who work in partnership with SBA and provide very legitimate financial offerings for your organization. Then you'll be able to indicate which of those banks or financial organizations you're interested in working with. And then they'll call you, right? So after you say, I'm interested in working with a particular bank, then that bank will reach out to you. So that's sba.gov/lender match. And I think starting with something like Lender Match or another vetted source, look at your local lenders in your community. Look at lenders who you work with for other reasons. Maybe where you bank would be a good place to start that conversation when you're seeking a loan. So I'd always say, think about your sources, and again, be very suspicious of cold calls. The other piece there is be inherently suspicious of upfront fees. And I'm really talking about application fees, filing fees, etc. Just like Jackie said, you can go to sam.gov and register for free on that government site, or someone will charge you some money to do it on your behalf. We actually see very similar scams in SBA's disaster loan program. So in our disaster loan program, we provide loans directly to small businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofits in communities impacted by disasters across the country. We actually just revamped our application, so it's entirely online, it's mobile friendly, and it only takes about 15 minutes to complete. So it is a very customer-friendly application where we've really worked to reduce the burden, make it easy for folks going through these difficult times, like, for example, the folks who were just impacted by Hurricanes Helene or Milton. If any of you are on, please apply for an SBA disaster loan if that will support you in your recovery. And we've really looked to streamline that application. You can apply with SBA for a disaster loan program for free. And again, it's quite easy, about 15 minutes for that initial application. But there are also scams out there who will charge you money to submit that application for you. And sometimes those scams can be quite expensive. Now, again, when you're pursuing a financial product, I know especially if it's new, maybe this is the first time you're getting a loan for your business, you're not quite sure what's normal for when fees are coming at you. And so I would say when you are looking to close your loan, as in you guys are ready to sign on the line and the bank is saying they're going to give you money, that is when it is normal and expected to see fees arise. If you're running into significant fees earlier in the process, make sure to be inherently suspicious about them. Just ask about them and ask if that's something that's required, or is that some sort of service that they're providing you that maybe you want or maybe you don't. So again, think really critically about your sources and the financial organizations that you're working with, and be inherently suspicious of early application fees, filing fees, or any upfront costs before you're really signing for that financial product.
Thank you, Katie. Those are all great things to keep in mind. And I also want to plug, although it's not on the topic of cybersecurity, I want to double down on something Katie mentioned, which is we are recording this during a season where there have been significant natural disasters in our country. Our agency does offer disaster loans, not just for small businesses, but also for homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. So please do look into our offerings if you've been impacted. Jackie, I'm going to come back to you on another cybersecurity topic. This one's about regulations. Are there any cybersecurity regulatory concerns that a small business needs to consider if they're thinking of working with the government?
Yes, definitely. And the regulations are different for DoD and civilian agencies, but most civilian agencies are leaning towards the DoD to set the standard for what cybersecurity regulations should look like. So it's important that you know where to find everything. And so I pulled up the website, and it's public.cyber.mil, public.cyber.mil. And this is DoD's cyber exchange, and it provides a one-stop shop for all the cyber information, security, guidance, and free training for cyber professionals and also for the general public and small businesses. It's a really great resource that you can go to. And as you start to learn, about CMMI and different things that you may be looking to build into your company's infrastructure, it's important that you know what you need to have to go to bid after different types of contracts, because you don't necessarily need the golden standard for a contract that may be under the simplified acquisition threshold, which is a contract under $250,000. But if you're going after a contract that requires a facility clearance and it has access to more critical information, then you may need the higher levels of security in your company. But the place to go is public.cyber.mil.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're giving everyone a lot of good web links to go to throughout the course of this panel. Remember, this is recorded, so you can always go back to look up those web links if you need them. Katie, I'm going to come back to you for our next question. You did touch on it a little bit in our first discussion, but I just wanted to see if you have more thoughts on this. It's about outreach. Do you have advice for how small businesses can verify the legitimacy of outreach from financial institutions, or where to go to if they feel like they're running into problems in that space?
Absolutely. I think that the first thing you want to think about when a financial organization reaches out to you is, again, did I reach out to them first? Did I apply for a loan? Did I go on Lender Match or otherwise reach out to this organization or a partner of theirs who may have referred me to them, right? If not, proceed with suspicion. And certainly if you find that any financial organization is in any way kind of overstepping or moving into the space of scamming, there are a lot of different places where you should report this activity to ensure that we, the federal government, can work together to stop it and ensure that it does not impact other small businesses or other Americans, perhaps homeowners, renters, etc. And so the place to go to report that. There are a lot of different federal agencies, and I know sometimes it's hard to know where to go. And so I'd say the easiest one to remember is to go to the Department of Justice, and you can report it directly there. The Department of Justice will take any and all incoming on potentially unlawful conduct in the financial space, and they can help root it. But I'll also highlight two other potential places, depending on the outreach you receive. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, commonly called CFPB, does a whole lot to help protect against financial scams in the consumer space. And then, of course, you can always report it to SBA and our Office of the Inspector General, especially if this financial organization is making any claims about SBA loans or about SBA products that is at all kind of not aligned and correct with the way that our programs work. So again, Department of Justice is a very good go-to. You can certainly always report to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB. And then if it has anything to do with our products, please also report that to SBA. I'd encourage you really, though, to start with the same way that Jackie was saying, look at that .gov website at the end, right? That's a good place to know if you're reporting it in the right place, and a good place to start when you're looking for financial organizations or institutions to work with. If you're working with a bank or another federally regulated national lender, or even a community lender, they will all say on their website that they are regulated by, insert federal organization here. And it can be tricky because, again, there are several different federal organizations that oversee banks and other financial players. But those organizations include the FDIC, the OCC, I'm going to say these slow, it's a lot of acronyms, the Federal Reserve Board, and of course, us here at SBA. So always look for who their regulator is. And if you've got any doubt, you can always reach out to who they are saying their regulator is. And then you can report scams to Justice, CFPB, or us here at SBA.
Katie, thank you. And to any of our listeners, if you're ever looking for help navigating all of the alphabet soup that you can sometimes seem is the federal government, remember that is our job, the SBA. We are here to help you navigate. And so please do come and see us or come see some of the resource partners that Aditi mentioned. And Aditi, I have one last question for you, and then we'll go to closing thoughts for all our panelists. It's related a little bit to some of the talking you did earlier about our resource partner network. But the question is this: how can small businesses connect to additional resources either in the cybersecurity space specifically or for small business services generally, whichever you'd like to highlight, or both.
Great. Well, there are a lot of options, just like Katie was mentioning, in terms of lots of regulators. We also have lots of resources to help you find those folks. But I definitely recommend, I mean, obviously, if you're here with us today or you're watching this on your computer, and you'll get good things like this summit is going to be posted on our YouTube channel at sba.gov on YouTube. So you can, as Arthur has mentioned, watch and watch again. It can be one of your comfort shows if needed. Happy to have you there with that. But also we have on sba.gov, we have our Learning Center, and there are a lot of other different courses on the Learning Center about how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to get government contracts, how to improve your cybersecurity posture in that Learning Center. Again, more self-directed, self-paced learning courses. But if you really want some in-person assistance, we also have what we call our local assistance section of our website at sba.gov. And there you can put in your zip code and get all of those resource partners I talked about earlier, your SBDCs, your WBC, your VBOC, your district office. All of those will come up. You can play with how much of a radius you feel like traveling within to find those local resources and get those local connections. And so those are really great ways to plug in with all of what SBA has to offer. Again, pretty much everything we offer is free, and that is great for you. That's a great price point. And also, I do want to mention that for all the people who registered for this event, when it was done in real time, not if you're watching on YouTube, but we'll be sending out an assistance or a directory guide, and we'll try to include as many of the links as we just referenced in this section today, so that you can click right through to all the different places where we'll be sending you. So that will be an email coming from us, but it'll come from a .gov. You'll know you were here, and that's how you validate it's a good source of information. And then go ahead and just type those links into the browser instead of clicking through, just to be extra safe and secure.
Thank you, Aditi. Everyone, I'm now moving into what will be our last question. I'm going to go in reverse order from when we did introductions. So I'll start with Katie, and then we'll go to Jackie, and then to Didi. The question is simple. What advice would you want our attendees to leave here with today? Are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to offer before we wrap up? So Katie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and emphasize that when you're working with financial products for your small business, trust your sources, right? So start with trusted organizations. And I would always emphasize that people always want to move very quickly, of course, to move forward with a loan or financial product, but don't skip over the opportunity to get on the phone with someone, meet with someone in person, or otherwise validate the partner that you're working with to make sure that it's the partner that you want to move forward for a long-term financial agreement.
Jackie.
Thank you, Arthur. For me, it's important that we help you get government contract opportunities. And we do that through our OSDBUs at every federal agency. I mentioned some opportunities earlier, but depending on what time you see this, those opportunities may have come and gone. But there are new opportunities all the time on sam.gov. And if you want to get ahead of the opportunities, even before they are on sam.gov, I urge you to go to the agency you want to work with and click on their OSDBU or small business site, and you will see a forecast. So for instance, if you want to work with HHS, you go on their website and look for their OSDBU page and click forecast. And you can see all the contract opportunities that are coming up over the next 24 months. And that helps you engage and market and talk to them about your capabilities, whether it's through a meeting or if you just happen to bump into them at an industry event. But get out there, help us meet and continue to exceed this 23% goal. You need to be part of that $170 billion spent every year with small businesses.
Thank you, Jackie. Aditi?
Well, I'll say, an important part of cybersecurity is to get started. So hopefully during the course of today's sessions and last week's sessions, you'll have a moment to do any of the things that we've talked about. Check out any of these resources. It's important to start somewhere. And also, as you're thinking about those trusted sources, I definitely encourage you to use our resource partner network to finding those counselors, but also use other business owners to vet the places that they've been, just like you would wouldn't get a haircut from a guy on the corner without maybe seeing somebody else walk out of there. I would definitely recommend not, signing up for a loan without knowing that somebody else has successfully used that bank or that financial institution. And similarly with government contracting, as a small business owner, you have a lot on your plate. You do need to delegate at some point if you really want to grow. And that's the best thing I can do is use sources and validate, use those references, take that time so that you can find those trusted advisors and move forward in that way. So.
Thank you, Didi. That concludes our formal programming for today's panel. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's worked on putting this Cyber Summit together. And a special thank you to each of our three panelists. These are three of the leaders of our agency. So I'm very grateful to them for doing this. And I hope that what we've offered today has been of service. And finally, we'd like to say, I think all of us, thank you to you, the small business community. Please, please, please continue in your small business journey. And please, please, please avail yourself of our resources when we can be of help. Reach out at any time. We're here to serve you. Thank you very much for joining us. And we hope to see you soon.
So good morning. I am so excited to have Matt Travis from the Cyber AV Board and Derek Davis from DOD, the Small Business Office. And we are thrilled to be at the SBA Cyber Summit to be able to talk about the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, fondly known throughout Washington, D.C. as CMMC. And so I'm going to serve as your moderator today, and I'm going to restrain myself from getting so excited that this rule has gone through. But really, let's set a level set the groundwork for small businesses and really trying to understand some of the security needs here. So, Matt, when you were working on this, what do you see as the primary risks that small business contractors have to be aware of when they're going to participate in defense contracts in the defense industrial base?
Well, Karen, first off, good to be with you, and thanks to you and Derek for the invitation. And you were quite right. It's some exciting times. Those of you who've been tracking or maybe not tracking the CMMC journey over the past 3 years is how long it took rulemaking to run its course. But last Tuesday, we got to see the final CMMC program rule under Title 32 of the Code of Federal Regulations. And it is a occasion to mark, because what this does, Karen, is it puts effective December 16th, the CMMC program as an authorized and functioning DoD program. I should say it's the accreditation body for CMMC. The Cyber AV is a nonprofit 501c3, so I always defer to colleagues in the actual DoD to speak for it. But so nothing I say should be construed as representing government policy. But we are certainly excited because it means that companies who have implemented the CMMC standard, which is NIST 800-171 revision 2, can go ahead and get certified by going to the Cyber AV marketplace and finding an authorized C3PO, and starting on hopefully December 16th or 17th, these certifications will be available. So that's point one to small businesses, that if they've been waiting to get that credential, we're now here after a long wait for it. But I think probably the bigger message, Karen, is that for small businesses, this is really a signal that CMMC is happening. As you well know, there's been a lot of skepticism and naysaying and some chit chat that this will never actually be implemented because of some of the twists and turns that the program had experienced. But publication in the Federal Register as a final rule being entered into the Code of Federal Regulations should be a very clear signal to small businesses that they're going to need to conform to the CMMC standard if they have aspirations of supporting the Department of Defense through a contract. And that standard is going to be different depending on the nature of the work that they're doing. 3 levels to CMMC. Level 1 is probably where everyone should really start within the small business community. And that means you're meeting the 15 requirements to protect federal contract information. And that is certainly an attainable requirement, but it's one that you can't just knock out over a weekend with a mid-level IT manager in your business. So you need to get familiar with what level 1 requires. You need to probably get some help, which is out there. And the third point I'd make, Karen, is that you also need to be aware that a lot of your primes, now that the rule is final, are going to require you to get certified at some level or another, probably before it becomes mandatory. So I should note that while the CMMC program will start on December 16th, it'll still be a while, probably a year or so, before you'll see the mandatory requirements of CMMC into DoD contracts. Again, and I'll stop here, these requirements have always been in that 7012 clause. What CMMC really is the third-party validation, or in some cases, the self-attestation that you've met either level 1, 2, or 3.
So I appreciate all that background, and I love NIST publications, and so I know exactly what you're talking about with all of these different things, right? But if I'm a small business, Derek, and I'm listening to Matt, why is DoD requiring me to do this? What threat or what is the problem that DoD is trying to solve? Matt talked a little bit about protecting federal contract information. So what does that really mean between a small business, or like as Matt was talking about, I'm a small business, I specialize, but there's going to be a prime. Like, what does that really mean? What is DoD trying to solve so that a small business gets it?
Yeah, I think with a little history, if we go back probably over 20 years ago, there was PCI compliance for credit card payments. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but all the small businesses were like, why do I need to get PCI compliant, right? I'm just trying to give my customers products and services, right? And they found that, PCI was a big deal and it protected them, right? And now, in order to process credit cards in our country, you need to have that PCI compliance or that body there. And I think over time, people realize the impact of that, especially with cybercrime, right? Here, the same instance, as Matt mentioned, NIST, there's always been some type of compliance from a cybersecurity perspective in some capacity. I think now with the amount of small businesses that there are in the DIB, the challenge that we're facing is the third-party providers, right? So if Matt and I have this small software company and we're providing some type of schematics for something in defense, and we're dealing with a third-party contractor that maybe is based in China or somewhere else that's providing some type of silicone to a microchip that we're manufacturing, there's a third party. There's a lot of different companies that are impacting or touching that product or service along the way. And so we need to protect not only the IP of our company, right? But we need to protect the IP of the defense and the DIB as a whole. What we want to do is communicate to these small businesses that even though you have an awesome, innovative product or service that you want to provide, so ultimately the warfighter abroad or stateside gets to use that product or service, we want to make sure that product is secure and is able to protect not only you and your company, but also against threat actors that you may deal with that you don't know. I think ultimately, when I look at cybersecurity, I'm a cybersecurity nut. I look at cybersecurity as if you have your cybersecurity house in order, it's speed to product and market, not slowing you down. So if you have these things taken care of, you're faster, you're more attractive to the contractors, you're more attractive to the government, and we want to do business with you because you have your cybersecurity house in order.
So Matt, in your opening comments, there were a couple of other things that you said on threads that I wanted to pull because it dovetails very nicely into what Derek was just talking about, like having my house in order and being prepared. There were a couple things that you said, especially around level 1, which would be, first off, just really explaining what level 1, level 2, those of us who have been just so excited and fascinated, and you've been living it for the last 3 years, some of this is going to be really new to people. And they're going to have to really make some decisions about how I am going to set things up so I can do the things that Derek is saying, or I can do some of the things that you're saying, like I'm going to have to start it anyway. So like, what am I really starting? Because I want to sell my great idea and my product to defense, because I know it's going to help protect the warfighter. So what do I really have to focus in on, and what does this all mean as a new business, a small business coming into this space?
So Karen, I would say, for one, I would encourage everyone to read the rule within the small business community. There's a lot of preamble pages there, but if you go to the back of the rule, you actually see what the rule entails. But to summarize, there are 3 levels to CMMC: level 1, 2, and 3. And as I touched on earlier, level 1 is really just to protect federal contract information, FCI. So 15 controls that have to be met. I think most companies, Karen, whether they're small or medium, are going to either be compelled to be at level 2 or going to want to be at level 2. And that's where you have 110 controls from NIST 800-171. It's basic cyber hygiene. No one's asking anyone to invest in quantum computing or anything crazy. It's the basic access control, configuration management, and really looking at, does your organization incorporate cybersecurity, basic cyber hygiene, in how you conduct business? Because what CMMC is not is a checklist inspection to see if you're checking boxes. It's really an assessment to see, do you meet the standard that the Department of Defense has set to do business with them? We often forget that it's DoD's data that is being shared with the industrial base, and DoD wants and needs that data be protected. So these 110 controls at level 2, which again, I think where most companies are going to want to be, really address that. And depending on the nature of your contract, and this will be at the determination of the DoD contracting officer and the program office, you might have a level 2 requirement that requires that third-party assessment certification from a C3PO, or you may have a self-attestation at level 2. Either way, you still need to meet all 110 requirements of level 2. And this is all geared to protecting controlled, unclassified information. When we're thinking about CMMC and we're not talking about classified information and secret and top secret compartmentalized networks. This is all unclassified information, but it's sensitive enough that it needs to be protected. And so level 2 is that level. It is something, again, that you can't do over a weekend. It's something you probably need help with, and it does require investment. So I'm not going to say it's a non-trivial investment. And I would remind everyone, however, that you probably already have the 7012 clause, the DFAR 7012 clause in your contract, and you have already been doing this, or should have already been doing this, in terms of implementing those 110 security requirements. What CMMC is either you're self-attesting in a government system formally that you meet all those and you've scored yourself, or you're getting a third party organization to validate that and certify it. Then we get to level 3, additional 22 security requirements from NIST 800-172. Here we're talking about large businesses. This is really a protections to guard against advanced persistent threats. I don't suspect many, if any, level or small businesses would find themselves, certainly as a prime at level 3, but they might be a subcontractor to a level 3, and potentially would have to meet that. But it's the MM and CMMC is a maturity model. So I think the department always envisioned, let's get companies started initially at protecting FCI level 1, work up to level 2, and then depending on the nature of the work you're doing, you may have to go to level 3.
So Derek, I see you shaking your head a lot. Is there some additional clarification that you would like to add here about, again, stressing why DoD is all in on this? Because of, you want to have innovation come in, but you also want to make sure you're protecting information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to add something. I know there were on level 1, there were 17 controls. Now, are there 15 now? Just because I wanted to make sure that I was clear before I misspoke. And those, yeah, because that was the thing. They were changing the amount of control areas in level 1 that were affecting small businesses. Now, so from a DoD perspective, we have a free program. We have Project Spectrum, which we've offered since 2016. And it's a free program sponsored by the Office of Small Business Programs and DoD. But there are also other programs. NSA, Karen, as you know, that has a program. DCMA has a program. There's other programs that are set to be launched, other cloud security programs that are going to be free services for small businesses so they can communicate with procurement offices back and forth in a secure manner. Again, Project Spectrum's that training and education, because we realize the impact that it's going to have on small businesses. And the feedback that I've received from the small businesses is, how can I afford to do this? I'm a shop of two people, and we're engineers. We're not cyber folks. We have a laptop and that's it. How does this affect me? So, the government has sponsored programs like Project Spectrum, the NSA program, the DCMA program, and others that are free training and education platforms to help educate entrepreneurs in the small business space that need assistance on how to figure this out. And I think that, obviously we have these talks that we're doing now, and we go around generally globally and we talk about these programs. So Karen, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. And we can pull the thread a little bit on this because, again, Matt, you're just such a treasure trove of nuggets. You keep throwing out good things that allow us to pull the thread on it. I think, like listening to both of you, my number one question would be, if I'm sitting out there watching this and trying to really figure it out, because that's the key. I'm trying to figure out how I can bring, my business or bring my innovation to a prime or to DoD, or how is that going to work? And I think, Matt, there's a couple things that you said, especially at level one, because I think some of the small businesses, when they're getting started, and we're talking about the 15 control. So I'm glad Derek asked it too, because I was going to look up, because it was 17. So that was one of the big changes. But when you're looking at this control, and you've tied it, you've said you're going to need help and it's not going to happen overnight. There's a bunch of things. There's a lot in there that isn't necessarily technical. And they have to really think about, to your point, Derek, I have two laptops and we're two engineers. Well, the number one question again would be like, how are you protecting your intellectual property, right? Like that's the whole basis of this. And so, Matt, you talked about self-attesting. What in your mind is how that process is going to work? Because self-attesting, I can say yes, and then you said it's not a compliance, check the box. So what am I really self-attesting to?
It's a great question, Karen. It's an important point to note. The CMMC 1.0 had level 1 as a certification requirement. You have to bring in a C3PO. And when DoD paused and kind of reassessed the direction they wanted the program to go back in 2021, one of the changes they made, really as a concession to small businesses, was take away the certification of a third party and make self-attestation the requirement. But it's important to note that when you're attesting, what you're doing is you are stipulating, essentially under penalty of false claims, via the False Claims Act, that you have accurately conducted a self-assessment. And if you look at the final rule, it tells you how to conduct a CMMC self-assessment. And based on the results of that self-assessment, you're entering in your score and attesting through, I believe it has to be a senior company official. It can't just be some low-level admin person doing that. Someone who can bound and represent the company has to make that attestation. And you're essentially confirming to the Department of Defense that you are meeting the requirement that you are contractually obligated to meet. So it's not something that you want to take lightly. And to Derek's point, it makes it all the more, I think, compelling to seek assistance, whether that's from some of the programs that DoD offers. We have a whole registry of practitioners who have undergone a background check by us, have taken a modest training regimen and passed a modest exam, but more importantly, have been following CMMC for the past 3 years, attending town halls. They're engaged in what we call the CMMC ecosystem, and they're available for hire, but they're available to help as well. And so one of the insurance policies I always say, even at level 1, is bring in someone else to do your assessment, right? You're not required to bring in a C3PAO and you're not required to get certified. But if you bring in a third party, especially one that's credentialed in the ecosystem, and they say, here's your score, you can enter that score in with a little more confidence that when you attest to it, it's not just you or your people saying, hey, boss, we're all good. Go ahead and sign your name to that. You've got a recognized third party doing that for you, even though it's not a tech-based certification assessment. So that's something I think all small businesses should consider. Again, that you'll hear from me throughout this program. You don't have to go through this alone, nor should you.
And I'm going to ask you to explain, because we know what it means, but I think a lot of people watching this will not. You keep saying C3PO, and I'm like, okay, where's the Star Wars person going to be coming through, right? And where's R2D2? And, like, I need to have a frame of reference for that acronym as well.
Yeah, Karen, as Derek knows, one thing CMMC does not shy away from is a multitude of non-intuitive acronyms and initialisms. The C3PO stands for CMMC Third Party Assessment Organization. So these are the companies who have gone through the process of becoming authorized to conduct CMMC assessments. And they are the ones who will actually be conveying the certification at level 2 upon completion of a certification assessment. Not only do they have administrative requirements, they have to have qualified personnel who've been certified by the CAICO. Then they themselves have to get assessed by the DIBCAC at level 2. So it's a rigorous process. We currently have 58 C3PAOs. They too are listed on the marketplace, and they're available to conduct your level 2 certification assessment, or can also do what might call a mock assessment to help you get a better sense of where you are. So that's what a C3PAO means. They are different. If people are familiar with the FedRAMP program, they have 3 PAOs. So again, no C because it's CMMC. That's a different cadre of assessment organizations. And while some companies exist both as FedRAMP 3 PAOs and CMMC C3PAOs, for CMMC level 2 certification, you have to use a C3 PAO from the CMMC marketplace.
So Derek, you hit the nail on the head saying, wow, how am I going to do this? So your office does help. You've mentioned one of the programs. So if I reached out to you, like, what are you going to tell me to do? Go to a website and look at the project, or, is there some resources that they can reach to that, actually helps them ask questions? I could throw out a bunch of other ones, but, you're the critical client, right? Like, I want to do what you need me to do so that I can get DoD contracts. So, like, how would a small business then really start approaching this? Because we've listed off so many free programs, but like, right. I just kind of want to know, like, where should I start?
Well, firstly, and I think Matt mentioned this, firstly, once it's in the contracts, right? Once it's in these RFPs and these announcements, first order of business is for the small business to understand what the language is in the procurement or the RFP, and see what cybersecurity requirements are there, right? That's first. If they're only willing to work with us because they're responding to something. If they're a proactive organization and they just want to be prepared for announcements, RFPs, or any type of opportunities to do business with DoD, and they want to, kind of get ahead of everything, first thing you would do is, for us, Office of Small Business Programs, you can just go to projectspectrum.io. But the cool thing about Project Spectrum is we have cyber advisors. So if, like the example I gave of Matt and I are 2 engineers, we have the small business, say Matt or I can contact Project Spectrum. We get in line with the cyber advisor. Within 48 hours, that person will reach out to us, set aside time. First, it'll be a virtual meeting. Virtual meeting, there'll be a chat going back and forth, answering questions. If we need to set up a call, we set up a call. And within that call, we can go over all the questions that Matt would have, and as an example, as a small business owner, as an example, to talk about cybersecurity, small business, and DoD, and how we can help bridge that gap. And maybe that conversation may end up saying, oh, I'm responding to an RFP and they say we need level 1. Oh, okay, we can help you with that. We can even help you with level 2. We can help you with providing that SPURS, getting you that SPURS assessment for that SPURS score. There's products that Project Spectrum assesses, as an example. Say, for instance, it's something like a SIM you may need, which it's on an extreme side for a small business, but say you need a SIM. Well, there's a product, there's a application within Project Spectrum that will allow you to kind of compare and contrast all the SIM products in the marketplace to help you make a better educated decision on what SIM you may use if you needed to do that. Same with firewalls or any type of software service that's cybersecurity led. And that's one. Now, the NSA's Collaboration Center, they have their DNS program, which is a very successful program. You can go and contact them. They have the same kind of, thing where you contact them directly. Someone can reach back out to you and they can guide you through that process. And lastly, you have DICE, the DC3, their collaboration center, and the products and services they offer, and they can connect with you as well. So I think mostly is contacting us through the website. We have cyber advisors. We can help you with your SPURS score. We can go over what some of these cybersecurity acronyms are. We can go over with you some of the compliance metrics you need to meet. What is intellectual property? What is FCI? What is CUI? And we can educate you there. And then we also have YouTube pages that are dedicated to some of these training and education videos. And then we also post weekly through LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So.
And with that, Matt, so if this is a procurement, because Derek gave two different scenarios. So, one, I'm proactive, so I'm going to go and do everything Derek said. But what also happens, and you mentioned this, is that what's going to be the impact? Because primes who are big, like a Lockheed Martin, like an SAIC, like, GDIT, like I'm just naming contractors around that I know are in there, Boeing, just a bunch of them. How do you see, and this is you forecasting this, this rolling out and the cascading down to everybody in their supply chain? Because if I'm a small vendor who just has one piece of something in a DoD contract, is it really going to apply to me?
So there are flow down requirements. So if you are working on a contract for a prime contractor and they have a CMMC clause in their contract, those requirements are going to flow down to you if you are storing, processing, or transmitting a CUI. And so we're already seeing anecdotally that prior to the program starting on December 16th and prior to what we call the DFARS requirements kicking in, probably won't be until early 2026. So there's another federal rule that's going through Title 48 that deals with the contractual requirements. So that'll come a little bit later. So nothing's mandatory yet. But that notwithstanding, we're seeing already primes who are notifying their supply chains and notifying all their teams on their team agreements that don't wait. We want you to go ahead and get certified or minimum get a score in SPRS. Otherwise, you're off the team. Because if they're a prime, why put at risk your viability to compete, win, or get contract renewals if you have teammates who are going to be a liability to your overall bid? And so people always ask me, when are the requirements going to be in the contracts? And I said, well, that's a DoD matter. And frankly, not that it's irrelevant, but I do think market forces in terms of the big primes and the medium primes are not going to want to, that liability of partnering with firms that are not conforming to the CMMC standard, now. And I think you're going to see that within the sector, there is going to be and we already see it with some of the C3POs who already have customers ready to go to get assessed here in a couple of months, that for a small business, it's less. There are two conversations a small business should be having very soon, if not now, regarding CMMC. One is to any external service providers you might partner with, whether that's a cloud service provider or an MSP or an MSSP, because they are part of the equation as well. But that other conversation is with your primes. You should be contacting your primes now about what their CMMC policy is in this, what I would call this preliminary phase, where the program is up and running. certifications are available, but the mandatory aspects haven't been implemented yet.
So, and Derek, you talked about some of the resources that are there. So if I'm a proactive, what I'm constantly hearing from you guys, the theme here is, if I'm a proactive small business, I should be reaching out now if I have existing contracts that are in the defense industrial base. Because if I haven't heard from a prime, if I'm a subcontractor, I guess the other question would be, if I'm in the supply chain, but I'm not actually under a DoD contract, right? But I am a supplier to one of these major contractors in the defense industrial base, and they could be getting some different things. Is that going to touch on me? Because I'm not a sub, but I am in their ecosystem, so I'm involved in their ecosystem. Well, how do you envision, and this is getting into the collaboration opportunities, do you think, some of the primes are going to say, hey, this is how I want to handle supply chain overall, and then use CMMC as the foundation? Matt, is that how you would like it to roll out?
No, you touched on a couple of things. I think one thing is important to note: everyone should read the rules, you're familiar with it, but it does exempt off-the-shelf technologies, government furnished equipment, operational technology. And so the scenario you laid out at the beginning there, Karen, about you're not necessarily a subcontractor, but you're a supplier. And if you're not storing, processing, or transmitting CUI, you're probably going to be what we call out of scope. You're not in the scope of the prime's CMMC boundaries in terms of a supply chain for flow down purposes. But the notion that you can just hope that you're not impacted as opposed to be proactive and call is not advisable. Your supplier is going, or your prime is going to want to know what measures you're taking on cybersecurity, regardless of whether or not you're actually technically a subcontractor or not.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Derek, go ahead.
And one of the things that I've been working on, I've met with some of the large primes, right? I've met with some of the big four large primes that are out there. I won't drop any names, but one thing I've been working on is meeting with them, going to their small business office, and potentially having conversations with them to have like a quarterly or a monthly small business cybersecurity, kind of like a project spectrum thing, talk, right? Where that way we're growing this faster, we're educating small businesses faster, and we're helping the large primes because they have a big responsibility. Not only do they have to, through the mentor protege program and all these programs that are out there to help small businesses, they do have a duty to help make sure that those small businesses are prepared to do business with us. So educating their path through cybersecurity education by meeting with them quarterly is something that I've been working on with my team, trying to figure out what's the best way to do that, right? Because obviously us three on this call, we can't reach everyone, right? But what we can do is we get the word out, work with large primes, work with other offices, do talks like these that spreads the word. And that's some of the things that we're working on behind the scenes. I found that in my travels around the country, that most of the small businesses are just scared to death and they just don't know how it's going to impact them, right? And so I think my job is to help them understand that we can do this together. And there are resources out there, and this is here to help you, not hurt you, regardless of what's going on the internet in terms of the talk.
Well, and you make a good point, right? So that's why all of us are on the SBA Cyber Summit, right? Because it's the collaboration, and it's to really take this requirement and say, hey, this is to help you. It's not to be a challenge or an impediment for you to enter into the market, but that this is going to be a good thing for you. And Matt, I think that's what you're really hitting on is that this is a good thing for you if you're proactive and you start looking at the way that you're managing your business now. And I know you have collaboration opportunities too. There's a lot that you do as well as the Cyber AV board. Would it make sense, is there a small business component that you can do a lot of outreach or communications to small businesses?
One thing I would recommend is that small businesses, connect with the CMMC ecosystem. We hold town halls on the last Tuesday of every month at 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. It's a virtual town hall. If you go to our website, cyberab.org, you can sign up for those. It's a great way to hear about what's new in CMMC and get introduced to some of the other organizations that could be of help to you. We've had Project Spectrum on before. And so that's the first thing, get engaged in CMMC. There really is a community. We all know this is a compliance regime, but there really is a very supportive community of practitioners and experts and government offices that want to see small businesses succeed. I don't speak for the department, but I know that they don't want companies to leave the sector because of cybersecurity requirements. They want small businesses where we get a lot of the innovation, where we get a lot of the new ideas that you and Derek talked about. They don't want to be chasing them away or scaring them away. But to your point, Karen, all of these security requirements, certainly level 1, level 2, are in the best interest of your business anyway, even if you weren't doing Pentagon contract. I mean, as a business owner, you would wanting to be protecting your own intellectual property. You'd be wanting to protect PII, personal identifiable information, financial information. So adding government CUI to that list of things you want to protect speaks to the, just the investment that is sensible to make as a business owner or as a head of a small business. So this is not just really, it satisfies the government conformance requirement, but it really is in your best interest. In many cases, some of these very basic cyber hygiene requirements are things you probably should have been doing a while ago. So it is good for you. It's good for the relationship, how you're viewed in the defense sector. I do think as we, we're at the very early stages of this, but I do think as we get into it, having that status of being CMMC certified or having that full score in SPRS will be a credential that companies are going to want to market. They're going to want to be telling, hey, primes, I am certified or I am good to go on level 1. Here's my proof and I'm ready to team. And those companies that won't be able to say that. So I do expect market forces in terms of business competition to be an incentive for companies not to be sitting around and hoping that this will pass, which it clearly, it's here to stay.
Exactly. So Derek, the thing that you said is small businesses are scared to death about how this is going to impact me. I think, again, as we start to close out some of this discussion here, there are proactive steps that they can take. There are things that you're talking about. Could you just what would be, for example, some budget considerations as they go forward, what they have to think about as I'm a small business, I'm going to talk to SBA. I'm going to have to give SBA a business plan. I would think SBA is going to now start looking at, hey, you should have a cybersecurity plan. Like, how are you managing risk? Like using a bunch of these other types of tools that are there so that, SBA is helping small businesses really, invest. So I know you work with SBA as well in doing some of this. So let's talk about how we could calm it all down so everybody's marching forward to do the right thing.
Well, yeah, definitely. We like working with SBA. We also work with NIST. We also work with some of the digital manufacturing, digital institutes across the country. And what we do is we just try to promote early and often the services we provide, but also helping these small businesses understand the impact. So you mentioned cost a little bit. I think the good thing about some of the requirements and some of the services, there's a lot of cloud services that are out there. In some cases, some of the small businesses need to just turn on some of the security controls within some of the products and services that they use, right? And they just don't know how to do that, and we can help them with that. Others, they may have to purchase something, but we can advise them on the cost on that. Now, obviously, we're we're vendor agnostic, right? We cannot, recommend a specific product, but we can recommend a service, right? Like I mentioned before, a firewall or a SIM service or turning on a specific security control or your complex passwords and things, multi-factor authentication. All these things do cost money, but the good thing is nowadays, a lot of these things are embedded into the operating systems that you're using, right? You just have to turn them on. And I've had calls with some small businesses, and I've had one chief engineer tell me, he's like, I don't have time to have a complex password. I need my password to be password 123. And I'm like, for a cybersecurity professional, I almost fell out of my seat. But I do understand that outside of my responsibility, when I talk to family members and I talk to other folks, yeah, cybersecurity is just a pain in the butt for them, right? They don't want to have to put in a 14-character password. And unfortunately, they think there's a cost associated with that. In reality, there's really no cost outside of time. There's no, financial cost because we've integrated a lot of these things into the product and services that we have out there. And so at minimum, meeting with us at Project Spectrum, as an example, can be a cost-cutting measure because there's a lot of things that you already have access to that you just aren't using. And then you can just go forward and use those things and integrate those into your cybersecurity plan, which Karen was just talking about. And then if you have that on your resume, as you would have a personal resume, you would have your small business resume. My goal is to eventually allow a small business to put on their website or on their business card that maybe they're Project Spectrum certified or they have this SPURS score, an assessment certified as a badge of honor. So when they go and work with a large prime, they say, hey, we've already done these things. We've checked these boxes. We're ready to play the game. Can you help us out? And so that's how I view it. And Matt, I don't know if you see something similar.
Well, you touched on a point, Derek, that this requires buy-in from the entire organization. And so if the C-suite, if the president's complaining about, oh, that password's too long, I can't support that, you're not gonna meet the security requirements. It really does require how the organization trains its staff, how it inculcates and implements cybersecurity practices throughout the organization. This is not a program for the IT department. I can't stress that enough.
So we could talk about this all day because I love this stuff because I work with small and medium businesses at the Cyber Readiness Institute too. So Derek knows that, and so does Matt. And I too wrestle with, I want Matt to recognize the CRI certification as well, because then the primes will then know that they have a business plan in place, they have an incident response plan, they've trained all their people. And to the key point, and ours is free, just like everybody else's, it's the time that it takes for a company to do this. And so your resource of time is critical. But Matt, I want you, and then Derek will close with you because this is a DoD requirement. I want you to leave the small business audience with like one key thought about CMMC going forward.
Karen, thank you for the opportunity. Derek, good to be with you as well. It's that help is out there, Karen. Derek mentioned some programs. We have the whole practitioner program where we've got companies, individuals who are dedicated to helping businesses implement the CMMC requirements and prepare for an assessment. So help is out there. You would be crazy for any company to go through this alone. You've got the department wanting you to succeed. You've got the ecosystem wanting you to engage, and you've got primes out there looking for partners that they can trust from a cybersecurity perspective. So all the incentives are there for folks to help you. It's crazy to go alone. That's probably the biggest message I'd like to resonate with small business owners out there.
Awesome. Derek?
Sure. And good points, Matt. And, I like to stress that to me, as a cybersecurity nut, this enables you to be faster, not slower. So if you look at it as a thing that this is going to slow you down, I think what you'll find is if you don't abide, you will definitely be slowed down and probably stopped in your tracks, right? But if you comply, learn, try to educate yourself, your company, this can help you be a faster, more attractive company. And in time, you'll see that you'll look back and say, wow, I can't believe that I didn't think that this was a great opportunity for my company to be secure, protect my intellectual property, and just be a better, more attractive customer to the DIB. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I want to thank you both for spending this time with the audience and participating in the SBA Cyber Summit. I'm really thrilled for you, Matt, because I too am like Derek. I've been in the cybersecurity field forever. And, it's things like this that are going to make people, like what Derek said, is like, oh my goodness, why haven't I been doing this all along? Like this is second nature to me. I want my business to thrive, and this is what I need to do. So you've left everybody with a lot of really good resources. I'm sure we will follow up with SBA to make sure that they have those links so that everyone can actively participate. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And we're stepping into the world of the real CMMC.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So welcome back, everyone. We just had a fabulous session on the CMMC. Really appreciate our presenters talking about the latest policy updates, the resources they're deploying, and really letting our small business owners know what to expect, especially if you're going to be one of our government contractors helping the federal government work on so many important projects. Really appreciate that discussion. Boss, it's towards the end of the day here, so I just wanted to make a couple quick comments, and then I'll turn the camera over to you if you don't mind. I was just looking at our internal report. You'll get a copy of it towards the end here, but it looks like we had about 2,500 registrants for our 2-week summit. So awesome work, team. Looks about 4,000 engagements. You all that were in the chat feature, thank you for being so involved. You both lent your expertise, asked for clarifications, and really kept the conversations going. Aditi, we also ended up with I've lost track, I think 12 to 14 segments, right? We added a couple at the last minute, which is awesome. And we had approximately 30 speakers and experts. So I really think we came forward with our best approach, both the SBA expertise and leadership, our technology partners out there, our grantee partners, just the whole gamut, of course, our federal partners as well. Sort of a quick thank you to the team and the partners. I was thinking earlier, we've gone a long way, right? At the SBA, decades ago, we saw a trend in credit card fraud for small grocery stores and retailers out there. And we started working with partners like the FBI and NIST on protecting that one issue, right? We've sort of fast forwarded into a partnership with multiple agencies. We do some road shows once in a while. But more importantly, now we have this national network of our SBDC partners, our cyber grantees, state leadership, you name it. So really, it warrants that type of attention. Small businesses obviously are so critical to our nation, and the administrator often talks about the whole of SBA. I think we're living up to her challenge in terms of delivering this national network in terms of partnerships and expertise, and being humble that we know things continue to evolve. So with that, though, Aditi, let me turn it over to you. I'm still digesting a little bit of the day's activities, but I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, Jack, thank you so much. And what a great event that we've put together. Hopefully all of you attendees have really enjoyed this experience and have learned some things. I want to thank you, Jack, and the whole my office team, the Office of Entrepreneurial Development, for pulling this whole thing together, as well as several other offices across the Small Business Administration. We've got help from our Office of Communications and Public Liaison, a lot of help from our Office of Diversity and Inclusion to make sure that these sessions are accessible, make sure that they look good. Really was across the SBA, our field offices and our resource partners for making sure that you all had the information on how to register and that this was even happening in the first place. It was really a great collaborative effort to make this whole day happen, and also last week's day happen. So thank you so much for joining us. I also want to reiterate some of what you heard from both our Deputy Administrator Syed today and our Administrator Isabel Guzman. This is such an important issue for small businesses to be prepared, and for you to take the time today or last week to join us and get more educated about how you can protect your business. That's exactly what we want you to be doing. So we really appreciate that you've taken the time out of your day to be here and get a little bit more educated and take that next step. So, but Jack, I want to ask you, what's one of your favorite takeaways from all of this? I'm sure it's a hard decision, but lay it on me. What do you think small businesses should walk away from here knowing and hopefully implementing soon?
Thanks for putting me on the spot at the end of the day here. To respond, probably two quick things, but a lot more as we sort of wrap this up. One is, and I think, Aditi, you often talk about us within our team here. We're so proud to work with these experts out there at the Small Business Development Centers, our cyber state grantees, and other partners. We feel lucky as public servants to work with so many committed folks that are helping small businesses. I do tease them a little bit when I watch some of their sessions. I become a little wary of using my own personal cell phone device, right? Because they share both precautions, but they're professionals. They also share what should you do, right? So you don't expose yourself to unnecessary risk. I think our federal colleagues, I'm always thrilled with sort of the range of federal services out there and how accessible they are. So folks had a chance to dial into week one, that panel session. Our colleagues really did sort of approach the gamut of services, whether you're a satellite provider, right, or a food truck operator. How do you plug in to some of these resources so they're not intimidating and you can take action? The good news I also want to remind the audience is that if you missed a session, want to rewatch something, or pull these nuggets out, we're going to archive all of this on SBA's YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, look SBA Gov, that's our handle. We'll also provide links to it for all the attendees afterwards and on our website. So those are my quick takeaways, boss. Back to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would definitely say, to build off of that, I hope that people just feel like they've gotten something where they can get started. You've heard some kind of scary stories and you've maybe, run away with worry. I hope not, but really the first important thing to do is just take a step, take a next step. And so we really want you to, go back to our YouTube channel, check that out, but also just be aware of all of the different resources that SBA has available to you. So I hope that one of the next steps you take is visiting SBA.gov. There are a couple of really great places there to keep getting this information. One is our online learning center. We have some really great content there, not just about cybersecurity, but about everything related to small business, how to get started, how to get funded, how to get a contract, how to market. There's a wide range of courses there. So if you want to continue this, you've always got to be learning, you've always got to be growing. And I think some of the resources we have there are great because, you can do them at any time and at your own pace. And then I think also very importantly, in terms of SBA resources at sba.gov is our local assistance tab. We definitely don't want you to feel like you're going at this alone. So we have these local resources. We have our great district offices across the country. My colleagues in our Office of Field Operations are very, very, they're our front line. They're very excited about working with our small business owners across the country and certainly can do all that they can to support you in your growth, both in cyber resilience, but just broadly in general. And then, of course, we have our resource partner network. We have our small business development centers, women's business centers, veterans business opportunity centers, our SCORE mentors. There's probably more, but if you go to sba.gov and check out the local assistance tab with a quick insertion of your zip code, you can get back those resources that are available to you. And I encourage you to use them all. One of the things that's really impressed me on my travels as I meet with businesses is some of the most successful businesses are the ones that have used multiple resources on their journey. That's a really great pathway to get to that next step. And it's a really great way to engage with us as an agency, as well as how you've done so today. So thank you so much for being here. We've really enjoyed putting this together, and we hope that you've gotten something out of it. And have a great day. We'll see you next year. Have a good one.